us. How you doing, Bizud?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
All right. Hey, all right. It's been kind of like a long-ish day of streaming and stuff like that. But this is like, I actually like doing these episodes of this thing at this time because it's like Friday night on my end. I can finally go, fuck it, have a beer. And it's kind of like a nice vibe for me.
Right. I missed your stream earlier because I was sleeping.
How dare you? You don't actually like. You're not one of those people that feels like a commitment to watch other people's streams, though, are you?
I wouldn't say commitment. I lurk a lot. I'm in the background. It's really great background content, especially over this past year.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Being as just having it on. Like I get that a lot. Like with a lot of people will use like a lurk command or just be there and say I was lurking the next time you speak to them. And I kind of get it, like it's almost like I think people used to have the television on for the same reason. Like they'd fall asleep to the TV, or they'd have the TV on while they're in another room doing something, just so there's this kind of background noise. What is that? Why do you think people like that?
Afraid to be alone with their own thoughts, perhaps. That's part of it. I think it kills the boredom. I have to admit, the Bob Ross stream is like what I used to fall asleep sometimes.
Oh my god! I discovered. Well, I didn't discover it, but I was made aware of it probably about a month or so into doing Twitch, and that would be my Saturday night. I would just kick back.
Right.
Just not like sort of switch off, be like half awake, half asleep kind of thing.
Yes. Right? I know. I have stuff on in the background when I'm chopping vegetables or whatever. Like I can't have anything on in the background when I'm trying to get work done, but yeah. But yeah, especially, also like, you had my brother on a while back.
Yes.
I'm lurking in his streams a lot.
Yeah, which is one of the ones I tend to lurk in also.
Right.
So you mentioned that when you're working, that you don't like to lurk, probably because it's distracting or hard to focus. What is it you're working on right now?
So right now it's just schoolwork for me.
Yep.
Post quarantine and pandemic. Earlier in the year, I was working at the university as well as going to school, and now I'm doing one program online through a different university, as well as taking courses in math and statistics and computer science at my local university.
Wait, you're doing math and statistics? I thought you were doing like psych.
So the program I'm doing online is in psychosocial rehabilitation.
Okay.
And like I went back to university a few years ago at the age of 32, finished my degree in psychology and philosophy. Started originally, like when I went back, my aspirations were pretty limited, but then I started really nailing it and doing really well. And professors were telling me, you can go as far as you want. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to try to get into clinical psychology programs. And it turns out they're insanely difficult to get into. And so I haven't gotten into any yet. And I'm in the process of writing more applications now.
Okay. And
old man trying to get into PhD programs.
I can think of worse fates. I can think of better, but I can think of worse.
For sure.
What was it that drew you back to university at 32?
Early midlife crisis, I suppose. Yeah. It was a girl.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a girl, and a rejection that kind of forced me to take stock of my life and where I was at, and realize, like, you know what? I could say to myself, well, it's too late to make the most of whatever. But that's never really true, but it gets more true the longer you wait. So you might as well go for it right now, right?
Yep.
That's basically the way I look at it. Like, yes, it is true that you'll regret not going back earlier, but that doesn't mean it's never too late. But it becomes more more too late.
Yep.
If that makes any sense, right?
Yeah, it's people say it's never too late, but that's strictly false, because when you die, it's too late. Like
Right.
when, I mean, assuming assuming that this is all we've got, when you die, it's too late. And it's funny that you mention it being a kind of there being a girl involved. A lot of the pivotal moments of my life have, as much as I like to think of myself as an independent-minded, critically somewhat thinking kind of person with agency, or so I tell myself, a lot of the major turning points excuse me, in my life have been usually surrounding some kind of beginning or ending of a longish term relationship, which involves like moving somewhere, becoming a new thing, adopting a new set of like values or whatever.
Right.
And I had a small version of that this year, not the biggest I've had, but a small version of that, or a medium version of that, where it was like, fuck, man, I got to like reconsider all my stuff. But it didn't take me very long to actually feel thankful. Like, okay, I'm kind of glad that happened, because I don't know what the fuck I was thinking 3 months ago. Like, I don't know what the hell that was. Do you feel the same way about that?
Oh, yeah. I remember at the time I was really down in the dumps and thinking I just need to do something to change as radically as possible. But within a few months, everything was going so well that I didn't even recognize the situation that I had been in a few months before. It was just like I couldn't believe the way that I was. When I try to look back on my own mentality at the time, it's kind of alien to me, or like, well, I can recognize it as like I was in a different headspace. And it just really goes to show how much our thinking is shaped by the way that we perceive the reality that we're in.
Yeah. And that's something that kind of, it fascinates me on the one hand, and on the other hand, it kind of scares me a little bit, because I always feel like I'm in control. Or at least of my, not of my environment, but of myself. I always think like, well, no, I'm perceiving things and making judgments based on rationale. But then when I look back, I go, I was completely fucking crazy. Like I was like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Why was I going to that thing? Why did I have those values? And so it makes me lose a little faith in the things that I have faith in now, knowing that retroactively in a year's time, I'll be like, what the fuck was I thinking then? So,
you might be.
Yeah.
Or you might think, wow, I was really on the right track after all. Like,
I can hope so.
So that's the thing, you never know. But you got to go with what feels right, kind of.
I agree, and I might have said this before on one of these. I've definitely said it before with friends. Just having conviction, I think, is important. Like just whatever you do, not if you're gonna do it, kind of thing. Like that's something that's taken me a long time to kind of get into. Like don't, and that was my Twitch thing also. Don't kind of like half do it a little bit. Don't, it's just like, if you're gonna do it,
shit or get off the pot.
Yeah, exactly. Just fucking do it. Be it and see if you like it. What got you into Twitch?
What got me into Twitch? It was when Twitch first started. When I first discovered Twitch, I was watching Dark Souls streamers, Dark Souls PvP streamers, and they were just doing things in the game that I didn't know could be done, and kind of playing the game in a way that's like way beyond the level, because most people don't seriously. Most people who play Dark Souls don't get into the PvP aspect of it and spend more time PvPing than they ever did doing the single player game. But there's a whole dedicated community, and I kind of wanted to be part of it and see if I was any good. So I picked up a capture card and started. That was like 5 years ago, I think. And I was, just really small time, and then disappeared from it for several years. And it came back a little bit, but yeah, it was definitely wanting to hang with the really good PvPers and the really good players of like fighting games, Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah. So it was really based around engaging in sort of games that you really valued and communities that you really valued surrounding those?
Yeah, very much. And it's been amazing to see how the platform has changed over the
Mm,
past, especially the past year, because now it's become so much more than this, right? Now people, well, I remember when do you know who Ice Poseidon is? He was that IRL streamer.
for
I
some
don't even know
reason,
if
it
he still,
sounds familiar, but maybe I'm just making that up. I've heard of
well,
Poseidon and Ice.
his thing was that he would just stream his life with like a
Mm,
GoPro and walk around town and do things, meet interesting and outrageous people, and
right,
be
right.
ridiculous. And it was really sensationalist, but it kind of provided the catalyst for people to realize like this thing can be more than just people playing video games. It can be whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah,
Anything that drives engagement from your audience, right?
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so and now like people have their arts streams.
Cooking
You were
streams.
doing, yeah, you were doing you were doing a stream with a book recently, right? Like,
Yeah, I read from the, well, where is it? This fucking thing over here. Little self promo, yeah. I read from this, yeah, just like go through the human history. Fun.
super cool.
Nice to do stuff other than, I love games, but it is nice to sort of see, not that I like invented that kind of stream, but to just sort of push the boundaries of what you know you're doing on this thing, you know.
Yeah, it's like being, well, you know how the name YouTube was supposed to be like the idea of this is you're on TV. It's you dot TV.
Yep, yeah, yep.
Like Twitch is the new you.tv, I suppose. It's twitch.tv, but it's really like, it's whatever you want to make of it within
Mm-hmm.
TOS, obviously.
Yeah. I do you think that the changes will continue in the way they're going, or do you see anything new coming? Do you think there's anything untapped that like will previously, or in the future we might look back and go, I can't believe people weren't doing this on Twitch?
Um, it's hard to say
Mm.
because a lot of things are still on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And like university lecturers, but a lot of them put their lectures on YouTube now, and some of them are hugely popular,
Yep.
which is really cool to see.
It's
And
great.
it's like, sweet, I can basically audit a Yale history course while chopping vegetables.
Yep.
Fantastic.
That stuff's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a dude who I was listening to a bit of stuff. I wanted to learn about the. I was hearing a lot about critical theory, and this and the school of critical theory, and so like I just like wanted to actually learn about it a little bit, get like a bit of a 101. And I can't remember the name of the guy. I'm subscribed to him on YouTube, but he just has this whole fucking course of lectures. And
Oh,
it's
fantastic.
like, it's just, man, like it's like, and he's a
Yeah.
professor, you know. It's just like, this is basically the quality of what I got at university,
Right. Yeah.
you know, with no obviously no engagement really on my end, no requirement, but you know, at least on a
Right.
passive, in a passive sense.
That's the thing. You don't get quite as much out of it when you aren't forced to write,
Yeah.
but uh
But
but you do get a lot out of it. So
then maybe that's, Twitch is a more interactive thing, right? Like I wonder if that is a future path for things like that.
that's possible. If I could predict the future of this platform, I'd be bigger than I am now. That's
We'd
for
all
sure.
be rich, yeah. If we could figure it out, we'd all
Right.
be fucking rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's a fascinating thing, you know, like my take on it changes every day. Some days I feel like you know, if I'm really honest, some days I feel like it's like a great thing in the world that I'm really happy to be a part of. Other days I think it's maybe a flash in the pan and going to be usurped by a new platform in 5 years' time, and why don't I just get on the other platform, whatever the next, try and figure out what the next thing is. And yeah, I got no idea. It changes rapidly.
It's hard to say, but it's owned by Amazon and Jeff Bezos, right? So it's probably trending
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. At least there's some money behind it. Hey, have you there's a new thing they've got on it. It's the predictions. Have you seen these yet?
No.
So I was in your brother's stream, and he asked me if I got this offer for predictions. I think like 50% of affiliated streamers, and obviously probably all partners, just randomly selected, I think, were given this offer by Twitch to do a prediction thing, which is kind of like a poll, but it's kind of like gambling.
I've seen this,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what it was when I was seeing it. Yes.
So
yeah, go on.
The idea is that you can create a question, and it's I guess it's structured in the way of a prediction, like what will Bizud, what dialogue option will he choose, or will he win the fight, or something like that. Yes or no. I think it's just a yes or no thing, or an option A, option B thing. But people can gamble a certain amount of channel points on it.
Okay.
And then so it's just straight up gambling, but not with actual currency, just only with channel currency. So they get around the laws, I guess.
Yes.
It's safe gambling. Nicely done.
Know your limit.
Yeah. But I feel like it's going to be a thing. Hey, I think it's going to be because people like risk and reward, and like it's engagement.
Right.
It's
get
very
that dopamine flowing.
Oh yes, that the gamification of a gaming gaming fucking platform.
Yeah, I love the idea because it sounds like that's a great way to get the audience engaged. Engaged in a way that's engaged, participatory, as opposed to merely being passive consumers of.
Yeah.
Do
you view Twitch as something that, do you think everyone in chat wants to be engaged, or do you think some people go there just to sort of passively watch it or view it?
Sometimes I go there just to passively watch. Like if I've just done a long stream and then I'm rating somebody, I'll usually watch, but I'm already winding down, right? So I can only be so engaged. Or if I've got something on in the background while I'm chopping vegetables, if I'm watching my brother's stream while I'm doing the laundry or whatever. Sometimes it's nice. Sometimes I feel more like engaging.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice that you can, there's whatever you want to find almost. It's on Twitch.
Oh yeah.
So
what's the weirdest thing you've seen on Twitch? The weirdest channel?
That's hard to say for sure. There's some channels where it's just like, a girl just dancing or whatever for like hours. Or do you know that Forest of Wires guy?
No.
Oh man, his channel's wacky. He does all kinds of stuff with like, zooming the camera in and the green screen, putting himself, inside a tower, looking out over like a weird environment,
okay,
distorting his voice. And he just riffs off what the audience is saying and stuff. You've got to check him out.
All right, I'll check him out. Forest of Wires, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, people are doing stuff. People are trying to. I think because of this last year and so many people being indoors, there's been this. The market has just exploded. Both in terms of consumers, but also in terms of creators. And I don't know if it's balanced yet, but a lot of people are doing the thing that we're doing, and doing it and trying to like find like, how the fuck do I how do I separate myself from people? What is it that I can do? And you see some interesting ideas out there.
Right. Then there's the VTubers.
Yeah. What's your take on VTubers?
It's neat, I guess. I don't really see why the appeal is so huge. I can understand why some people might not want to show their face or whatever. And I think, hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
Why not RP as anime girl on Twitch?
Yeah. It's apparently it's big in Japan. I think Aguskum was telling me that there's generally a reluctance for people to show their face there, and so VTubing is quite a thing.
Right. Yes. I know it's bigger in Japan. Actually, a buddy of mine has been telling me that I should become a VTuber for a while now, and he says you're missing the window, man. It's already taken off. It's everywhere now. I guess Pokimane is VTubing now.
What is she?
Apparently, I don't. That's what I heard.
I so okay. This is interesting. Like, I don't see anything wrong with VTubing, and if people
Right.
want to do it, in fact, like I know a streamer Ziada who does a VTube as a cat,
Nice.
and it's good. It's good quality, and he's a good streamer, and it's a good time, and it works. But I find it interesting that someone would go from being the size of a Pokemon, where I've never watched her stream, but I know what she looks like. I know what her, like I've seen. It's just she's in the kind of lexicon in a way.
Right.
Why then become a VTuber? Because we already know the. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not sure what the how that would be an improvement or what that does.
I can't really say. I don't understand it myself.
Yeah.
I also don't. Admittedly, I don't watch too many big streams.
No, nor do I.
Or big streamers
Nor do I.
because
Why is
for
that?
one thing, they don't have the same audience engagement, just of necessity, right? How can you when you've got 1,000 people in your chat or 10,000?
Yeah.
You're unlikely to know people or recognize names that come by. And a lot of the time, they just become more cynically, I don't know, clickbait driven or whatever.
Yeah.
So
They learn
not to disparage anybody's efforts to get attention and clicks. Like,
yeah,
I love attention.
Yep.
And money.
Well, I love the second. I love the latter. You can, if there's a way that I could not have attention and get money, I'll take that over having attention and no money. If you know what I mean. But I don't know. Like seeing how tricky it is to maintain this thing, and I don't mean like, ooh, poor me. Like not like that. It's just hard. It's hard for people to succeed. Seeing that makes me respect those who do succeed so much more, even if I don't really enjoy anything that they're putting out there. Like just the mere fact that they figured out a thing that works, even if it seems cookie cutter, derivative, I go, you know what? Fuck yeah, you did it. That's great.
Absolutely.
Keep doing it.
Yeah. Beats most other jobs.
Oh, yeah. So. Damn.
Yes.
It does. Is this something that you would like to, like in an ideal world, would you do this as a job?
I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure out the balance for myself, to be honest, because no, at the end of the day, I have real doubts as to how many hours a day I can healthily spend at the computer.
Right.
I've got some hand issues from playing too many PC games when I was younger.
Man.
Yeah. I was just the most irresponsible with it. Like I would play on the couch. I'd be playing Civilization 5, holding the mouse at weird angles and getting terrible hand cramps and just playing through the pain for hours.
Damn. Yeah, I play a little bit like, so I grew up mostly a console gamer and like a handheld and a console gamer, but obviously I have a PC now. And if I, like when I was playing, well, shit, I am playing Morrowind again. When I was deep in the throes of Morrowind though.
Yes.
I do like, I don't know, 8 hours or something like that. And then I would feel it the next day.
Yeah.
Like, because like, not only am I doing the mouse thing in game, then afterwards I'm going to other people's chats, checking things, going through my tabs, and like I'm spending 12 hours of a 24-hour day. Just. And it's weird. I never got that from a controller. I don't know why.
I think it's also, it's a whole body postural thing, right? Like neck, shoulders, back, everything, hips. arm positioning and whatnot. Like I find that when you're using a computer, you're more likely to be stationary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're really not designed to do that.
No, no, we are not.
Like, yeah.
It's that's why I've forced myself to do runs and stuff like that in the last 7 months, because I've always led a fairly active life. I'm not like a fitness nut or anything crazy like that. I don't have like my own Instagram with workouts or any shit like that, but like yet. But I always walked to work. I'd walk places. I ride a bike. I just generally do things on my feet. And, I pick up basketball. But then all that stopped and I realized, man, I am sitting down for a long time, all the fucking time. And now it's like I have to like force myself to move, to run in a circle. I have nowhere to go. But the body still needs to do the thing. And yeah, that's crazy shit right there. Kind of hope to.
And it's tough because many of us are on our computers more often, working from our computers more often, working at home from our computers more often. And then you start getting into even more layers of dysfunction, because if you're spending all your time in the same room, that'll start making your brain foggy and stuff. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Because there's like, you need to move from place to place for your brain to shift modes, right? Like if you're the kind of person who plays video games in bed, eats in bed, then you might find it harder to sleep in bed, because you won't be automatically associating lying down in bed with going to sleep.
Yeah, that's just a space for living, right? It's not necessarily
right.
Yeah, that's
And I've been struggling with how to figure this out in this year, because I've been trying to transform my home office into a real workspace, but also it's a gaming space. And so I really have to force myself to stay on task. And I'm not sure that I'm doing myself any favors by not having two, but who wants to have two? Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I can't afford that.
I get you. And, some people have loved this whole working from home situation that's been spoken to a few. They're like, yeah, it's great. It's great. But a lot of other people, I think, long for a workplace. As much as they were loath to go there, there is something to be said about a space where everybody is there to do a task that you are there to do. And so there's not that feeling that like, there's not really a confusion about what you should be doing there. And like, even if at home, like, oh yeah, I should probably be typing up that report, then you just get a little notification like, oh, what's this in the notification? Oh yeah, so-and-so is talking to me. And then 35 minutes pass, and that, and so I think managing distractions is a really tricky one, man, for so many people nowadays.
It is. And also like the grass is always greener on the other side. I for one was really excited about working from home for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm ready to, I was working at a university, so I was interacting with like dozens or hundreds of people a day, just around people, constantly moving from room to room, building to building, seeing so many people that I knew. And now it's like, no, stay in your home, citizen.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes.
So what exactly were you doing at university?
Most recently, I had TA and RA jobs, and I was taking a few classes.
So teacher's assistant and research assistant?
Yeah. So I was helping out the psychology profs with their research, trying to get research experience, because that's right now the main barrier for me getting into clinical psychology PhD programs. Like my grades are good and my GRE scores are good, but I'm competing against people who have like publications to their name and just a crap load of research experience. Many of them went to better universities than I did. And And then I was also doing something what's called an SL leader. So basically, I got paid to put on study groups for classes that had been historically difficult, like statistics and formal logic. Basically, ask Cranberry about this sometime.
Yeah. Okay. I'll write
he
this
has.
down.
He didn't enjoy the formal logic class. The if P then Q stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
could see that with him actually. I could see, yeah, a bit of a but what if? Yeah,
yeah, of course.
yeah.
And it's definitely not for everyone. Um, but I enjoy it anyway.
He's
And I
more of a,
enjoy,
what is it, continental kind of guy.
yeah, exactly. Yes. More about the important questions, right? Than getting, nose deep in the details of, so nose deep in the details of like deep epistemological arguments, like how do I know that the green that I see is the same as the green that you see, or whatever. Anyway,
Mm.
but I really enjoy teaching, and when you see people get it, it's very rewarding.
Mm. Yeah,
Helping people succeed and stuff.
that's a
Yeah,
great
and
feeling.
yeah, it is. And I was also volunteering at the jail. One of my psych profs was the jail psychologist, and so I was volunteering under him to get some clinical experience. We were doing group therapy with the inmates. It
Mm.
was also very cool, very rewarding, a lot of
Wow.
fun.
How was the
Also
man?
stopped immediately after when the pandemic happened. It's like this jail has no visitors, no extraneous programs of any kind. So
Fuck.
I feel terrible for those guys in there.
Dude, that was probably one of the couple of things they got. Like I remember my mum used to teach art in a prison, and at first it was like a fucking like they were like it was maximum security, or it was like high. It was like apparently it was like the people who had been good in maximum security, if you know what I mean. Like
Right.
obviously
Yes.
the people who've been fucking up recently aren't going to get in, but like. But even still, like, that's kind of fucking terrifying. And she's going in there to teach art, and like she had a bit of an issue for the first one or two times, but then she realized after a while, like this was the highlight of their fucking month or their week, like, and I can only imagine how that must have been for people in those situations. Even that gets cut off.
Right. Yeah. And like I don't know too much about Australian prisons, but like Canadian prisons they're nothing like American prisons, for instance. But still there's, like the level of resources and education and other opportunities and stuff is not as good as you see in like Norway or whatever.
Yeah.
Where, if you go to jail, they're going to make sure that you actually, you get a trade so that when you get out, you're less likely to end up in jail again because people don't want to be going to jail for the most part.
Yeah.
But they just don't have a clue how to live their lives, basically. So
I was kind of blown away, actually. I'd heard a lot, meow, Dinkleberry. I was kind of blown away by when I last went to the US. I was visiting some of my good friends in Minneapolis. The stories of most of them having spent a little bit of time in jail, not like real sentences, but like a couple of nights in a county jail, or like a couple of like just being put in prison for like small sort of like bad decision on the night kind of thing, and like just not being let out for 3 days or something like that. And
right.
And that's not like the tragedy of someone's life. That's just a really shitty week. But it was just so common for people who I'm like, but you guys are the equivalent of my friends back home, and that hasn't happened to any of us. Like, I mean, not that easily anyway. And you sort of realize, like, wow, like they're not joking about it being different over here with the business model for prisons.
Yeah, America's a larger than life place.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was it like for you, actually working in the prison? What was your experience like there?
It's very rewarding, really humbling. I guess full disclosure, I've done some illegal things myself in the past. I know, right?
unfollowed, unsubscribed.
Just in case anybody, any like grad school application committees are watching this right now.
This is all a
won't say
performance.
exactly what,
We're
but-
not real people.
right.
Follow
Yeah.
for follow.
But yeah, some of them were people that I knew.
Right.
My city is about 90,000 people, so it's not that big.
Yep.
And like, well, first of all, like 9 out of 10 guys on the unit were there because of drugs.
Okay.
Um,
Selling or distribution or just using?
Either selling or getting involved with people and doing stupid things. Like
Yeah,
one guy's
because
thing-
of addiction or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of them have like a thing that is like their thing that they can't seem to stop doing. Like one guy would smoke crystal meth and then he would steal snowmobiles
I should
and go
laugh.
joyriding, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that's his thing that he couldn't bring himself to stop doing, and he was in jail for the second time.
Yeah.
And he was getting released soon, and this was last year in about June, and he was talking about how he was craving the rush of doing it again. And I'm like, well, it's June. You're not going to find any. It's the middle of summer. You're not going to find any snowmobiles right now to take on a joyride anyway. But
man, that's crazy.
But that's a real thing that a lot of people are not ready for. The way that you can be sober or clean while you're in prison and not necessarily have drug cravings because their body knows that they don't have the opportunity to get it. Sometimes depends on the prison, right? But then like in the days leading up to release, it's like all I can think about is going to my dealer's house and picking up a bag and going on a bender.
Hook up.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So it's like, it was very humbling to see that, to be put in touch with the stuff that people go through that is so easy for a lot of us to just not even realize that it exists.
That's crazy. In many regards, it feels like a life that is so far away. But also when I think about it from a different perspective, it's like a couple of decisions away for so many people. Like, I don't think people realize, well, maybe they do. Maybe I shouldn't say that about other people. I'm not sure that I always realize how close an adult is to bottoming out.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when even when you got shit together, you got a job, you got maybe a nice relationship, you got a good social circle, you got things happening, whatever it is. You're just like an expensive addiction or two away from being something that you would have scorned 6 months prior, like you see that with like Hollywood people who bottomed out. Like, do you remember the woman she was in American Pie, and I think she got her shit together subsequently. So I don't feel bad talking about it because I think she's back on the straight and narrow.
Right.
But she was like a side character. She was like a friend of. She had like the reddish curly hair or whatever, and she was kind of like sardonically funny or whatever.
Oh, yes, yeah.
You know the one? I think she...
I don't remember the actress's name, but...
No, nor I, but I think she got into heroin or something like that, and then you got the mug shots and the jail time, and it's like, man, like, we all, I think, we have it in us to do dumb shit. And so,
and imagine, like, you've got more money than you know what to do with, and you're surrounded by people who are telling you that you can do no wrong. Like, it would be... It's scary to think how easy that would be. To get into. And I'll never try heroin because I know I'd enjoy it way too much. I like I enjoy the opioid body buzz.
My uncle was my only uncle. I had 3 aunties, and one passed away last year. Rest in peace. But my uncle was a fantastic Aussie rules footballer, and I think you might have at least some peripheral idea of Aussie rules because you were born in Adelaide, right? Or did you
In fact, I was born in Adelaide. Yes.
I should have.
My parents lived in Australia for 10 years. Uh, and then I was born, and then they came back here.
What were they doing there with work, I presume?
My dad was going to university.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and my mother was working,
Yeah.
uh, so that my dad could go to university.
Mm,
And um, yeah, uh, it was free. He went to medical school,
nice.
paid like nothing in tuition,
Mm.
and then was like, "All right, see you later. Going back to Canada."
Suck shit, Australian fucking government. Whatever.
Well, I always think of that when people say, "Oh, it's pie in the sky to imagine that we could have free university or whatever." I'm like,
Mm.
well, maybe it would be expensive, but it's definitely not impossible, right? It's like
What's the situation there with university tuition fees?
varies from province to province. In
Mm.
British Columbia, the average undergraduate tuition is about 3,000 a semester for a full course load. For domestic students, international students pay like 6 times that amount,
Yeah, sounds like
uh,
Australia.
which is a thing. Like now, the universities are cash strapped, right? Because no international students can come right now, and the universities are like, oh gosh, realizing that their business model is
Guess
not
we have to
sustainable.
fire 75% of our staff.
Right. Well, they don't know. They don't know how to do it really,
Yeah.
because that is the thing. Administrative bloat is a big problem. Uh, but
That's
some smaller departments at my university are going to get the axe for sure. Like the film
right.
department, probably gone, uh, which is unfortunate.
They
Visual
just
arts, maybe
they just
next.
made a decision, the Australian federal government, probably about 3 months ago, that to do a humanities degree in Australia now costs twice as much as other degrees. If that is
What?
not if there is if that's not a signal of the intent of who the average citizen of a nation is going to be, then or who they would like, or like the values of a nation, it's like, okay,
Right.
don't do it,
Yeah.
don't do it, guys.
it's it's a real pickle.
Mm,
I know it's popular to dunk on the humanities in a lot of corners of the internet, but the
mm,
humanities, like literature, history, philosophy, these things are the soul of the university,
mm,
the institution going back 1,000 years.
mm.
Uh, but there's this tension between the liberal idea of the university as uh, a place where you go to become a better citizen, an educated person, an enriched person, and this idea of university as an investment
In your
uh,
future career.
in your future. Yeah, and that society pays for this so that we can have a better trained workforce.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I think it must have changed because it started at the former, right? And then it has slowly or maybe rapidly become the latter. I I was having this conversation with my friend just yesterday, actually, how a bachelor's degree means nothing. But even when I was in high school, it still, to the people who were like in mentoring type positions, it's like, a bachelor's degree, that'd be great if you got a bachelor's degree. Like, sky's the limit. It's like, well, actually, no, because you told that to every other motherfucker, and now we've all got bachelor's degrees. Do you think it's
I've had professors tell me a PhD is worthless now. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was also what my friend who's thinking of doing a PhD, thinking of doing a master's in TESOL, that's what he was saying. Like, I'm pretty sure a master's is worth nothing now. Madness.
uh, it depends. It's not. It's certainly not like it used to be, where just having a master's almost all but guaranteed you a decent job.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case anymore, but there are still places where it will be valued.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm sure there will be. It's such a tricky one. I'm a bit of a romantic at heart, so I like the former. I like the idea that it's a place that you cultivate yourself and that you take those, whatever those lessons are learned, or just interpersonal skills or deductive skills or whatever. You take those and you just apply them to whatever your thing is in life, be it a career, be it a pursuit of some kind. But at the same time, like, I would be naive to not acknowledge the current model of society, where like how many artists, how many painters can be sustained in a nation? Like how many like successful painters can there be? How many successful I feel like ethics can hold its own, because I feel like people should employ people who study ethics, you know. but you know what I mean? Like some of the other things, it's like hard to sustain the numbers of people who are doing this. So I kind of see the other side of the argument as well.
Yeah, I think it's also about what kind of, you know, do we want a society where history is dismissed as irrelevant and, you know, nobody studies it because that's, you know, pie in the sky to think that you have the time to spend a couple of years learning about what it is to be a person. And,
yeah, why
you know,
might want to do the things that you might want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it comes down to priorities and what societies are willing to spend on. Everyone's cash strapped these days, except for Bezos. He's doing fine.
Yeah, Bezos is great. And you know what I was thinking, and this is a bit of a logical leap, and I've done a few of these tonight, and I'll probably do a few more. I apologize in advance.
No, those are fine.
Is I was looking at Twitch Tracker. Do you know Twitch Tracker?
Yes.
I was looking at Twitch Tracker at there's, you know, we're speaking of not watching many big streamers. Probably at the biggest streamer that I'm subscribed to. I'm like, how big are they, like, according to Twitch Tracker? And like, because they at the time they had like 2,000 people watching. I'm like, I feel like when I started following them, they didn't have 2,000 people watching. Usually they were big, but they weren't fucking that big. And I looked, and there was like on this person's stream, you know, they've been streaming for, you know, a few years now. And they had this consistent like 80, 100, 110, 120, you know, that kind of partner thing over a few years, and then probably like 150, and then suddenly 600.
Right.
900, 1,200, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. And I was like, I wonder what happened. And then I look, and it's like, oh, March 2020. Like, I wonder what happened. And it's like, man, some people came out good. Like some people, some people came out good, and it's not like it was this person's plan, of course not. But like they profited from it.
Absolutely, they were lucky. They were perfectly poised to take advantage of the moment. And it is a lot about luck, right? Because you never know. Nobody could have predicted this.
No.
Oh, gosh.
Well, I mean, I think some people like have. You know, like
that's true.
Epidemiologists
did predict that something like this would come eventually. I don't know if they would have predicted the scale of it and the way that societies and people have reacted to it.
Yeah.
Like, although I saw a meme last year, or no, the meme was from last year. I saw the meme about a month ago, and it was supposed to be about like, this is what 2020 will be like. And it was riots in the background and an Uber Eats driver delivering food. And I thought like, whoa, shit, you really nailed it.
Damn. When was that? When was that
all
predicted?
that's missing is the mask. That was, I think the meme was from 2019.
Damn.
So it was.
Got it. Got there.
Yeah. So very, I don't know. Some people, who knows, right? With a population this big, there's always going to be somebody that hits upon the truth.
Well, yeah. If everyone just guesses, there's also probably a million people that like, it's going to be, you know, green aliens in, you know, a coalition with Satanists on Antarctica with, you know, penguin missiles.
I think when the aliens actually do show up, there's going to be lots of people saying, "Oh, I knew it! I told you it!"
Yeah,
like,
I'll be one of them.
Yeah,
I was the first. Oh, dude. Hey, by the way, this is again another logical leap. Just before I forget, you were talking about your hands before, and gaming, and you know, like having issues with the mouse and key. Didn't you break your arm recently?
Yeah, I did. I right at the beginning of the winter. It gets cold and snowy and icy here in Canada, I guess, pretty early relative to a lot of other places.
Mm,
And I slipped and I held my arm out to break my fall, which is never a good idea. And I
mm,
broke the arm instead. Uh, so fractured the head of the radius. The head of the radial bone sits in a socket. It's this like circular shaped protrusion that kind of sits in a socket in the humerus and spins around as you uh, pronate and supinate your wrist. So
mm.
I couldn't do this at all. My wrist was stuck like this, and this was about as far as I
Ooh,
could rotate it. So I couldn't even hold a coffee cup, let alone lift or push or pull anything. And it was,
jeez.
but I could kind of type.
Okay,
Uh,
that's
but it was
a
pretty
strange break.
debilitating. I could not eat with a fork. I could not, wipe my ass.
Did you learn lefty everything?
Everything. So
Yes.
that was, yeah. And uh, I ate a whole lot of instant burritos and pizza pops and stuff because all of a sudden I can't cut a steak. I can't even chop vegetables.
Mm.
So yeah.
But you're back. Like, I mean, I don't mean to seem disappointed. I'm very like impressed and surprised. Wasn't that like? I feel like that was kind of recently, right?
It was in mid-October, but yeah, I'm back. It healed so fast. Broken arms tend to heal pretty quickly, and it wasn't like a super serious break.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, it got a little stronger every day, and it's pretty much full strength now. So, I'm opening doors with it. That was the last thing that I couldn't really do with it was push heavy doors or twist
Mm.
like
Yeah.
sticky doorknobs or like open a jar or whatever. But no, all good.
Were
Amazing.
you drunk? Were you drunk at the time?
No, I was drunk right after though, or a little
Oh,
bit.
okay. Yeah. Due to it, you're like, fuck this. I'm getting on the terps.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I was so some friends and I had just been to a friend's wedding in Canmore, Alberta, which is about 5.5 hours east of here. A little longer in bad weather, and we were on our way back, and we were in Banff, which is like 15 minutes outside of Canmore, and that's where I slipped. And so, I wasn't going to make them take me to the hospital
Right.
in
Right.
Banff. So I sat in the car for 5.5 hours with this broken arm. That was a crappy car ride
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
that's fucking grim, man. So grim.
Yes, but at least I didn't break it before the wedding, right? So
That's true. That's true. You got the wedding. I've
yeah.
had breaks like that on festive occasions. I did my knee playing basketball when I was like 22. Not a festive occasion, just a basketball game. But then I didn't get I remember going to a public hospital to get it checked up by a GP there. In Perth at the time, and I was probably stoned. I was going through a phase of my life where I was like, I was just a fucking idiot. I was stoned. I probably got stoned to go there, and he clearly like just didn't want didn't want a bar of it. And I remember him just saying, "Oh, it's fine. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, you just got to let it heal." Like, I'm like, okay, but like it had torn the AC. Like my ACL was torn. He was just like, "Fuck you," basically, and
Right.
so I didn't. Then I went for a couple more years, and it slowly healed a little bit. It wasn't perfect, but I could put weight on it again. And then Christmas, like maybe 2 years later, I was playing cricket. Because it's sunny. It's summer over here during Christmas, and we're at a park with all my friends, and we're getting drunk and having like an orphan's Christmas. And I was playing cricket, and my friend, like fucking, I was bowling, hit me for like 6, like knocked me out of the park, and I'm like, okay, I'll get you next ball. I'll get you next ball. And I sort of come charging in, steaming into bowl, and as I deliver the ball, like I land on that knee, put all my weight on it, and it just goes blah again. It just blows straight out. I got him out though. I did get him out on that delivery, so it was maybe not worth it, but. And then there was that moment of like, oh my god, it's 1 p.m. on Christmas Day, and I just blew my leg out. Where's the booze?
Yeah.
Like what are you gonna do, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, knees are the worst. That kind of hurts just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, I cringe whenever I like any kind of sporting injury of that variety I see. I just go like,
Right? When you see like, yeah, like MMA guy goes to kick and
oof.
breaks, like I can't even watch it really.
Do you watch any of the combat sports?
No, not really. I have a
Mm,
lot of friends who do, so
mm.
sometimes I will just to be in the pub with them
Yep.
drinking beer.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear
Uh,
you.
yeah,
I always
that's
found.
another thing I really miss is pubs. But yeah,
Oh, I know. I know. Are pubs open where you're at?
no. Oh well, okay. They were for a while. I think they may have just closed again, but they've like they have to close very early. Uh, and I'm actually not even sure what the current restrictions are, but it doesn't matter because none of my friends are going to them. Nobody
Right.
wants to leave the house,
Really? Is
which
that so? That's the is that the current state of affairs where you're at? People are just like locking themselves down, basically.
pretty much, and it's somewhat understandable uh, because the number of cases is continuing to increase. And by the time that the hospital ICU beds are all full, it's too late to start doing anything about it at that point. Like the number of
Mm.
cases will continue to increase past that. So
Right. 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 Right.
uh,
Right.
I think, well, it's never going to be enough to satisfy some people, but generally, it's nothing like in the United States, for instance, that you see
Mm.
with nobody's going to. I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there are people having parties, but none of the parties that I usually would get invited to are happening.
Yeah. Not in your crowd. Not in your circle.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's a lot of people in that situation, though. And I wonder. I wonder what it's gonna do to people assuming we go back to something resembling the former, whatever our former lives all were. Um, do you think? Do you think a year of bizarro isolation land with technology and the ability for us to do great things like have this conversation, and which we didn't have maybe 15 years ago, to this degree anyway, with state of the art gaming the way it is now at your fingertips, with food that you can just almost, for all intents and purposes, make materialize at your door. I mean, for all as far as from your experience, it just appears.
Right. The
With
replicator.
I'm basically right. Like, I mean, there's a human there at some point, but presumably, with everything available, really, right? Like all of your needs and most of your wants. Do you see that having a long-term impact on humanity at large?
Oh yeah, especially for like kids. Um, some kids have missed almost a full year of school. Uh, some kids are really struggling with it. And I mean, if you remember what it's like to be like an 8-year-old, 2 months is an eternity,
Yeah,
let alone
two
this long.
days is an eternity. You can't see your
Right?
friend for 2 days.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. I know that some people have already discussed crazy things like uh, let's retroactively cancel the entire school year and set everyone back to where they were, uh, when the pandemic began, because that's the only thing that's fair, because some of the kids are succeeding with online learning, but others are really struggling with it,
Mm,
obviously.
yeah.
And it's like, well, that doesn't seem to make any sense to me because, like, if I was the way I look at school, at least the way I look at elementary school is like, get me through this place as fast as freaking possible.
Yeah.
Uh, but but as for like the long term effects on how humans interact with each other, who knows? Obviously, some lessons that people have learned won't be unlearned, right? Like a lot of employers have realized now how many useless staff meetings can be replaced by some emails or Zoom. but even better if, so hopefully that means that kind of stuff. And, or, absurdities like requiring a doctor's note to miss work if you're really sick. So your choice is, well, either I go and stand in line at a walk-in clinic and get people sick, or maybe get more sick myself instead of taking care of myself, or I go to work and get everyone there sick, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not as productive anyway because I'm sick. And it's wasting the doctor's time as well.
Yep.
Like that kind of thing has stopped.
Surely, right? That must have stopped.
Right? Fewer people are like when I was at the hospital to get my arm taken care of, there was almost nobody there because nobody's going to the hospital for stupid shit anymore.
Mm.
So, you know, there's a lot of positives to come out of it. And like you were saying, some people really are taking the whole work from home or school from home in some cases really well. And others are going mental.
Yeah.
And some people will not want to go back.
Some people will not, and I think as well, employers that are paying X amount of dollars for an office that has a capacity of 200 might be like, well, maybe we don't need an office this big. Maybe we need one with a capacity of 35
Right.
or 50
Exactly.
or whatever the number is, and so then that has a spiraling effect where, okay, so then in a place like Melbourne, and I think a lot of Western cities have this design, at least New World Western cities, of a centralized business district, often where, at least over here, a lot of the high property prices are because of the convenience of being close to the office.
Right.
Suddenly that has an effect on, well, why is this property valuable if there's no place to go? Why would I want to be here? And then, like, what does that do to a centralized city model?
That is a very good question. And I suppose it really depends on how long things persist.
Mm,
I mean, another thing, I don't know what the situation's like in Australia, but
mm,
in Canada and the United States, there were moratoriums on evictions. Landlords were not permitted to evict tenants for most of this past year.
yeah.
And Ontario, the province of Ontario, lifted theirs. And actually, the government hired additional staff so they could process the backlog in addictions fast, or not addictions, evictions.
Really?
Yeah. So they're literally like
the benevolent
just
government
churning through. Yeah, right.
Jesus.
Um,
Similar story over here. I don't know if it has that punchline though. It was like 6 months that they had a hold on them, but I think you can be evicted now.
well, yeah, and many people lost their jobs and haven't found new jobs, and many people haven't paid rent for a lot of that time that they weren't allowed to be evicted, and well, obviously they're going to be evicted really quickly. So,
As soon as you can,
uh,
basically.
right, but also like a lot of landlords were not able to pay their mortgage in the meantime as well, and at least in Canada, they were getting or have been getting support from the government as well, because, well, I'm to say the least, the government will always make sure that the banks get paid in the end, or that the banks at least don't get fail, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh, the real constituency.
Friends. They're friends.
Yes, the friends. Well, just it's just unthinkable that they would not.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason why ministers of finance or treasury secretaries or whatever they're called are usually bankers, right?
Mm,
Well, there are many reasons, I should say. It's more complicated. I don't want to oversimplify it, but anyway, we'll see what happens, because a lot of the banks are quite worried, because there are many businesses now as well as we go into. We've just started a second lockdown, basically, in many Canadian provinces. Nightclubs all had to close. Restaurants and bars are operating at reduced capacity. It's estimated that something like 50% of the businesses that closed downtown in my city will never reopen. So, these things have economic spillover effect.
it's still iffy here, but there's a bit of a resumption of something closer to what it was. But as the sort of sun rises or sets on that last period of time, The for lease signs are everywhere in the city. The business, it has happened, and even like my bank branch has closed down. Like
Wow.
my bank branch is closed down where I would get my cash out. Like the bank themselves hasn't gone under, but they're like the second biggest bank in Australia, or top 3 bank in Australia, and they're just like, oh, we're just going to leave here now. We will not be here now. And that's I've never seen that happen before in my lifetime. I've seen businesses close down. I was like,
but not bank branches.
At the banks, like, aren't they just holding the money? Like, what, that was just kind of an eye opener.
Bank buildings are usually the tallest buildings in any given city.
Yeah.
But it would make sense that they would decide, well, we don't need to have as many branch offices open.
Right.
And it makes sense that many businesses will decide that. Many businesses are forced to close because they're just told, sorry, you can't stay open. So there's reason to be very concerned because
absolutely,
middle class is getting hit pretty hard.
Yep.
So
and I don't I don't mean to make this like depression the not podcast, but like it is interesting to know, like, or I think it's important to know what the situation is for people, and then regarding ultimately I think of myself actually as an optimist. I have a very negative, cynical disposition sometimes, but I think that is because I think things can be better. I think things can always be better, and I want things to be better. And this goes back to before any of this shit. I was still cynical and critical of things. And given that kind of miserable topic of, what's going on around us, and, well, not miserable, but maybe concerning topic of what's going on around us and what we're all seeing and this change that's happening. That's what sometimes gives me an optimism in things like this Twitch thing that we're doing. Like, that's what makes me think, like, maybe this kind of work is a more viable future workforce,
right,
for humans. Because I wonder, not just for myself, not just like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? I mean, I do wonder that, but also, what the fuck is everyone gonna do? Like, what is everyone gonna? We've got what's the word for robots? Like, AI is basically taking over. Automation is taking over most jobs in the next 20 years, probably, or like 50% of jobs.
Many of them.
Like, I just think, man, what are we gonna fucking do? And so, do you think that online content will be a sustainable business for a lot of people in the future?
It's so hard to tell. Yeah, like a kind of decentralized, distributed entertainment industry almost. It's so hard to tell. I've never been the best futurist. And if I could make, like I said, if I could make that kind of prediction, I would have more viewers than I do. But I think it's certainly possible. All kinds of new things have sprung up even in just the last 10, 15 years. Things, all kinds of payment models and funding models, things like Kickstarter and Patreon. And who knows what's coming next.
Yeah.
Whatever. OnlyFans.
Yeah.
All kind of stuff. Yeah. OnlyCrans.
What is it? Audax strokes. Or
yes.
Well, okay, maybe I will stop trying to invoke futurist Bizud.
No, but no worries.
Would you see that as a positive future? Like,
yes and no. It's got its benefits as well as its downsides. For one thing, like I mentioned earlier, keeping us glued in our chairs more often isn't necessarily the best thing. I kind of want to get a standing desk.
Dude, I was saying that today. I was in another stream and we were talking about fucking our ass and how sore it gets and our back and shit like that. And I was saying, man, I would love a standing desk. Good call.
And they have ones that go up and down.
Yeah, no, I know the ones. There used to be one or two rotating in my office. And I was always like, whatever, because I was only sitting for 3 hours a day anyway. I was standing most of the time while I taught, so it didn't matter. But now I get it.
And not only like, and in the same chair. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big adjustment. Like for me anyway, having Twitch has been really great for my mental health this year. I probably would have gone insane without it because
Yeah.
I'm, like I said, I'm used to interacting with many more people
Me too.
regularly. Uh, and it's been really cool to see all the things that people have built over the past year.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, my brother kind of got into streaming just for the heck of it, and like his channel was growing faster than mine. Yeah,
Well,
and
sorry.
well, he's better at it than I am. So, anyway,
What makes you what makes you say that?
oh, yeah, he's always been better at talking to people than me, I suppose. Um, I find it hard to stay on for the entire length of a stream.
Right.
Sometimes you can get in a mode where it doesn't matter and you don't have to be on.
Yeah.
But other times, if you're not feeling it, it's like, I don't know, should I even be streaming? Let me send you guys to someone else.
No, I know that feeling. I've I think I've been able to enter like an autopilot. It's not autopilot because I'm thinking. It's not like I'm not processing information and applying
It's
prior knowledge and manipulating it or whatever and expressing
more
myself.
like a flow state.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. A flow state where you kind of you're operating now. Like the momentum's built, you're doing the thing, game, but sometimes something might throw a spanner in that. Well, inevitably there'll be a spanner in the works. There's always a spanner of some kind, and it's like some days I feel like I'm built to deal with it and just get the fuck out of here or whatever that technical issue is. And then, but I've found myself sometimes being like, I don't know if I'm bouncing back from this today. Like, I don't know if I'm like, I don't know where we go from here. Do you think is that like a skill that is learnt? Is it innate? The ability to sort of.
It probably is a skill that has to be cultivated. There's probably innate temperamental aspects to it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty ADD a lot of the time, so it's actually amazing to me that I can sit still for long periods of time. Yeah. And like I said, I'm still trying to really work out the balance. And like, like I don't really have a regular streaming schedule right now. I put my streaming entirely on hold for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say I haven't seen you, but that's because of exams, right?
Exams and final papers.
Yeah.
I do this to myself every semester. Like I take too many classes to begin with, and yeah.
How many classes are you taking right now?
6. So 2 online at one school and then 4 here.
4. I found 4 very hard. I actually liked 3. I mean, I was in my 20s, but I liked 3. 3 was like I felt like I could focus. I felt like I could really invest myself in 3. 6.
The craziest semester I ever did was 7,
Jesus
and then
Christ.
I was also working about 15 hours a week on campus, and then also like had some extracurriculars, serving on this committee for this little philosophy conference we put on at the university. I was just, but I found it easier because it was like I don't have time to get distracted, so I can just go.
You're just in it.
But if I get sick, if I stumble at all, I'm completely fucked.
Okay. Just seeing like how far you can go, kind of thing.
Yeah, like I have just by nature, by temperament. Remember how I said like I don't really worry about getting sick too much. I tend not to worry about very much at all, nearly as much as I should, and I'm not nearly as averse to negative consequences as I should. But so I find that to get myself to succeed, I kind of have to just force myself to be maximally engaged and 110% gung ho about whatever I'm doing, even if it's like some boring class that I don't really want to take, but I have to take or whatever, I have to get super excited about it, and I find a way to get excited about it. And
How
that
do you
kind of,
do that? How do you do that if it's something boring or something that doesn't? I shouldn't say boring. Something that doesn't initially grab you.
I find a way to connect it to other things that I'm learning and to what my ultimate goals are, and then also to what my values are, you might say. So it's like the hierarchy would be like core values, life goals, long-term goals, medium-term goals, immediate goals. And the more you have all these things aligned, the more you will feel propelled forward by dopamine, really. It's kind of the way that video games, the ones that are designed to be maximally addictive, they do this, right? They have a nested goal structure of goals within goals so that, as you complete this goal, like dopaminergic reward activity is what happens when you observe that you are oriented towards your target and moving towards it.
Yes.
You don't get the dopamine hit when you reach your goal. The dopamine actually is what's propelling you towards it. You get it as you are approaching it. And so what the nested goal structure of these games have is that they're set up to keep you moving forward. But as soon as you obtain your goal, that goal is already recontextualized as in a longer term goal, so that like, you're already moving towards your next objective and you never stop.
Yeah, man, that's fucking fascinating, dude. That's so, because once it's game over, it's game over.
Right.
That's the end of the, there's no more this has to give me. So that makes my mind fire in many directions at once. I think of an analogy of life actually there, but
well, that would be how you would ideally want to structure your life, right? You want your everything lined up such the way that it feels addictive and like you can't stop.
Yeah, that's a way to sort of trick yourself, to trick your mind into models of success, a la like a complicated RPG or something like that. Just give yourself these little like series of create like a leveling system for yourself or whatever, through which you can progress through life.
It can't be fake. It has to be really felt and authentic, because that's like, you can't always lie to yourself indefinitely.
Yep.
But if you think about why you're doing something, the more reasons you can find to tie it all together, the more you will feel like you want to do it.
Well, hence you saying core values, like hence that being
core values at the top. And if something is moving you in that direction, that's great. And also if it's moving you in the direction of your long-term life goals, that's great. Set up your medium and short-term goals. And anyway, but like, there's another side to it, of course, as well, which is that you don't want to burn yourself out by the time you're like 40, 50, whatever. You do require sleep.
Yes. I think we spoke about this before. I don't know if it was before recording or after I press record, but sleep issues and sleep, for people, like the fact that our workspaces are now in the same places where we sleep a lot of the time. Have you had any sleep issues of late?
Yes, lots.
Yeah.
But also especially because of the end of semester.
Right, just the grind that you're going through right now.
These past few days I did like nothing but sit down and work at 4 assignments, and the light's at the end of the tunnel. And now I'm kind of catching up on the other things that I was kind of neglecting during that last week, and rebalancing myself, so to speak.
Well, once again, I got to thank you for your time, because like it's always good to get people's time, but like the fact that you're giving some of your time during this period means a lot, man.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on, and actually, like I said, I put the worst of it behind me. This is like the first thing I've done other than sleep.
Jesus.
since I finished earlier, like this morning. Yeah, like it's midnight my time, 12:30 a.m. my time. So like, I guess 14 hours ago,
Right,
I
right.
submitted the last event and was like, oh my God, now I can close 150 tabs
Oh,
on my browser.
weight is just gone, right? Like that sort of
Exactly.
float around for a couple of hours.
Yeah,
That's
I
great,
can get
man.
as high as I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It does not
Congratulations, dude.
matter that I'm going to sleep at noon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll get my sleep schedule sorted out because it really is easier to keep everything in your life on track when you are maintaining a regular sleep schedule. But I've found that so difficult uh, this semester because, like, well, not this semester, this year, ever since March, because I never have to be anywhere at a specific time. I never have to get dressed and go anywhere. If I have a Zoom meeting at a particular time, all I have to do is throw on this house coat, sit down at the computer, or I don't even have to do that because I don't have to have the webcam on, maybe.
Exactly.
And I do worry a little bit about the erosion of all the good habits that I've built up over the
This
years,
is what I'm saying. Like I
getting how
spent
to be a human being.
yeah, I spent a long time. Like I went from a fucking piece of shit. Like, you know what I mean? I went from that person who got out of high school and is just fucking smoking weed all the time and doesn't give a fuck and drink all night and whose house is this? You know, the usual sort of
Yes.
stuff. That kind of life. Just a mess, but that's okay because you're 19 to slowly figuring bit by bit and, you know, life catastrophe by catastrophe, like learning lessons and becoming something resembling a more functional, presentable, respectable human being. But then in the last year, it's like a lot of those things that I've like taught myself to be, I just have this voice in my head like, yeah, but why should I?
Yeah.
Like, why should I? I mean, what am I doing tomorrow? Like, what am I, you know? And
Yeah.
it's hard, man. Like, it's hard. I think,
Why should I shower and change clothes?
yeah, yeah. I
Not
think this
put
is
Bailey's in my coffee.
Irish coffees, man. I respect it. Actually, is that an Irish coffee or is that with Jameson?
I don't know if it has to be Jameson, but I think an Irish coffee is actually just coffee and whiskey.
Yeah.
Maybe with some heavy cream on it or something. But
Right.
yeah,
Good
that's
wintertime treat.
close enough, right?
But that's, you know, that's what I worry. Like if it's, you know, you and I have reported this, and going back to what you were saying as well about the sleep, your story about what's been going on with sleep with you, I have never heard so many people tell me about how fucked their sleep is. Like honestly, 50% of the people I speak to, and you have a very, and I'm not like saying, oh, therefore it's not real. I don't mean it like that. Like your situation right now is doubly more like you have double the reason to be going through that. But it seems like, man, like I feel like a lot of people are gonna have to retrain themselves to be humans. You know what I mean?
There's a real kind of mental health crisis going on below the COVID crisis, you might say.
Some might argue that it's a bigger crisis.
Right. Yes.
Some might. I'm not saying they would, but they might, you know.
Well, there was an interesting report published in Canada last month about how the number of Canada already hasn't had an opioid crisis for years. And this was opioid addiction is basically one of my main reasons for wanting to study clinical psychology.
Really?
It's a huge problem, and it affects a lot of people who
Yeah.
are very near and dear to my heart, but also just tons of people in this community and all across the world. But the number of opioid deaths has like skyrocketed during the pandemic, and also reports of family violence because people are
domestic
cooped
violence
up.
is right up. Domestic violence is right the fuck up. Same here.
So, and I don't know. I haven't seen the stats on suicides, but like I'd be willing to bet that more people are dealing with all kinds of depression and anxiety because, well, there are a lot of reasons, but change is difficult. Lack of connection to other people is difficult.
Mm,
Uncertainty is difficult. And right
mm,
now, the disruption, it's so hard to know where we are to situate ourselves, right?
yeah.
Uh, but part of me kind of feels like we have to get used to that because the future is only going to get more complicated, not less.
Yeah, yep. I think you're right, and humans are remarkably adaptive. Like I think I mean I have no evidence in front of me, but just my gut tells me that that is one of the things that probably one of the trademarks of our species is the ability to adapt. Like when you think of, I mean, until what 150 years ago. Oh, actually, that's not true. It's happened, but until 150 years ago, there wasn't such widespread immigration and migration to other cultures. Like people have been able to. I know there has been in like the Middle East and Asia and stuff before, but like there's sort of been a recent upswing of that in the last, with the US and a lot of the Western countries. And like I imagine like how crazy it would have been for, say, I don't know, like an Italian family to get on a boat 100 years ago and just move to a new world
Right.
and just
leave everything behind.
and just fucking begin again, or a Chinese family to fucking go move to San Francisco and just go, well, here we go. Like, don't know the language, don't know the customs, don't know the fucking environment, don't know any of the people, and you look in these examples of people who've thrived. So we are as a species, we do have some things in our favor, I guess.
Oh yeah. What I basically agree with the cautious optimism angle. Like, on the internet, people talk about pills like red pills and blue pills, and the black pill.
What's the
like
black pill?
doomers. Oh, the black pill is the doomers who think like, oh, we're all fucked and you shouldn't even try. And because it's fucked and you're fucked and nothing matters. Like just crazy, the worst nihilism. Often there's overlap with some of the more like socially awkward, isolated communities on the internet. The incels, who think like, by virtue of your birth, you have lost the genetic lottery. You'll never reproduce. And this is the worst possible thing that could have happened to you. Life sucks, accept it.
Oh, well,
And it's like,
yeah.
Like, anyway, the black pill stuff got me thinking, well, what's the opposite of that would be like the white pill.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to accurately describe what I'm thinking about. So I thought maybe the gray pill or the black and white pill, the yin yang pill.
The yin yang pill, baby. Like, that's what I like.
Yeah. When you like take a bunch of mushrooms and have what by all rights should be a bad trip and come out of it thinking like, you know what, everything's fucked, but it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Or like, even if it's not fine, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep. Man, so interesting. I read Camus, The Plague by Camus about a year ago. Just happened to read it because I'd read The Outsider and I just really liked that, and I was kind of, it had been like, that's kind of like the next Camus kind of novel you're supposed to read. And the thing that obviously it's kind of interesting that I read it and then thing happened. That's just how things work, I guess. But what the takeaway I got from that is like the protagonist is, and for those who don't know, The Plague is about it's like I think it's a walled city, a smallish city in I guess France somewhere of like 100,000.
It's in Algeria.
People. Oh, Algeria. That's right. It is in Algeria. French Algeria of like 100,000 people, and the plague, like the actual plague, gets there and they have to close off the walls, and it's through the perspective of this doctor who basically tries to do his very best to work in the situation despite everything falling apart, and seeing the sort of fallacies of his fellow man and seeing really the stupidity of humans amongst it all, and the denial and the denial and the denial, and then it's too late and the body's piling up and on and on and on. It was actually a much worse situation than COVID in the book, but it's it's the plague after all. But the thing that I really took from it was this: the Doctor was striving to do his best in the face of pointlessness and helplessness. There was no way he could have won. There was no way he could have beat this thing. And he comes face to face with that understanding. He has to realize that there's nothing that can save him. So what is the point? And I think, my reading of it is the point is that this is life. You struggle to things happen. You struggle to make things happen. Like, this is what life is, and you have to sort of take some kind of joy in that, or some kind of just appreciation of the struggle itself. And that's what I took from that, which is kind of what you said kind of reminded me of.
Because it's a better way to live.
Yeah.
Than being a doomer, or I suppose selling out to an ideal you don't necessarily believe in. So Camus has this idea where what he calls the absurd is the contradiction between the human need to make meaning, to make sense out of life, and to find meaning, and an indifferent universe that does not make sense.
Yep.
And
well, that's that story, right? They're in conflict, right?
Yeah,
there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And according to Camus, to deny either half of that contradiction is what he calls committing philosophical suicide. So, like, Kierkegaard's idea of the leap into faith, or the leap of faith, which is that you should just decide that it matters, because life will be better that way.
Yeah.
For Camus, it's not quite enough. He says you have to be
aware.
Okay with the fact that in some sense it doesn't matter, but understanding that you're going to behave in a way that's kind of similar to how you would anyway.
Right. So it's not like a blind faith. It's like a behavioralism with underlying knowledge or whatever, like behaving as if you were ignorant of a fact while knowing the fact.
Yeah, but also like understanding that, like, it's about deciding what's a better way to live. Right. And, Camus did struggle with depression, and he was, he cheated on his wife a lot. And
yeah.
Definitely don't think that he had everything figured out in terms of what is the good life. Right. But, but definitely he has that idea.
But he had the questions, and he had the problems, which I think I don't think a good writer is someone who's figured it out. A good writer is someone who's struggling with it, like, and asking about it,
Right. Because the existing answers weren't good enough for him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I feel that the danger of nihilism is knocking at our door.
Yeah.
And so we have to confront it, because, similar to like what Nietzsche went through with his idea of the death of God, is that people don't believe anymore. So you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. So we better figure out a way to defeat nihilism, or else. Yeah. So and I guess in some sense, that quest never really goes away.
No, I don't think there's a full stop. There's not like a magic path to because and I think it's because we don't live long enough. Like, maybe if you and I were to live 300, 400 years, maybe it takes 1,000, I don't know. But like, maybe if societies, like if people in a society were able to live that long, they might get to a place like that. But I think our lifespan is too short in a way. Because once say you figure out at 95, well, you're dead. So now, like, I don't know.
Well, but also this, like, if you figure it out, like, you haven't really glimpsed, maybe you've glimpsed to use a Hegelian idea, the universal idea, like the idea that is like the form or maybe to get platonic about it, like the form of the true idea that that is the good,
Mm.
that's the light by which other ideas can be seen.
Mm.
But like you get a glimpse of that, and this is what Hegel thought history is people get a glimpse of the universal idea, and then they they imbue their passion into their efforts to try to actualize it, bring it into the world. But
Yeah.
what you have, like you maybe you glimpse it, but what you keep with you isn't really, it's not the universal idea, the capital I idea. It's just a particular instantiation of it
Mm.
that's grounded in your life, your circumstances. And the life, the reality, the society that you exist in now doesn't exist 70 years from now, right? It's a different environment
Yeah.
that will require a different kind of illumination,
Yeah.
a different kind of
The means will be completely different.
that's the idea. No, because no particular instantiation of the universal idea can ever be good enough or perfect. It'll always be weak, fallible, fragile in some way. It has to be, in some sense, the order has to dissolve back into chaos so that it can be so that a new order can be built.
Mm.
Right. It's like the empire,
Mm.
the Galactic Republic had to fall
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that the new republic uh, could could be born in Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Because everything that the Empire says about the corruption of the Republic is true,
Mm.
but the function of the Empire is to dissolve the Republic so that a new Republic can be born that is a more perfect approximation of whatever it is we're aiming
Whatever
towards,
the thing
which
is,
we
whatever
don't know.
the ideal may be. Well,
Yeah, but it will still always be a particular. Anyway.
I've seen that through reading this history book, which is it's the format of this history book is a really interesting one. It's not something that you would study if you were doing a history degree. On the one hand, it's kind of a coffee table book, but it's not. It's like there are professors that did each period. It's research. It's not just like like a picture book, but it's written in such a format as to give you it attempts to narrate or record the major elements of human progress or the major changes changes in humanity or features of different societies from the beginning of humanity to right now. And so what you see as you might span 500 years in 2 pages, you might span 1,000 years in 2 pages, you see these repetitions of, well, and even in middle ancient Egypt, there was like a period where the pharaohs were running shit completely. They were gods. People respected them. It was all peace. Then they gave a bit of power to the bureaucrats, and the bureaucrats rose up, and then and then a civil war came, and then there was upheaval and a period of no prosperity, and then another pharaoh came after some bloodshed, and the cycle repeated. And you see these things getting built up and broken down and built up and broken down, and that was within one civilization. They had like eras of that, let alone when that entire civilization collapses and the next one kind of comes up. And it's odd to me to think that there is kind of this cyclical nature of so many things that I often feel of myself that I'm headed in a line, that there's a point, and I don't know exactly what that point is, but there's a point. Like if I'm striving towards something, there's a point, but the reality is that I'm just part of a thing that's just going around, and there is no point. I mean, there's a point. I don't mean it like I don't mean there's no point in living or anything like that. But do you know what I'm saying, or am I sounding crazy?
Yeah, no, you're making perfect sense. You're part of you are many things that are part of many dynamic systems
Yeah.
and patterns that are behaving in ways, and humans kind of we impose meaning and order on the world in order to make sense of it.
Mm.
we like things to be permanent,
Yeah.
right? You were talking in your conversation with Audax Smoke, you were talking about that idea of like older communities uh, in Scotland, I think you mentioned in particular, that had been there for so long, that had this feeling of permanence and
Yeah.
stability to them.
Yep.
But in some sense, like permanence is not really something that exists in reality.
Right. It's all relative, right? It's permanence in the sense that it's permanent through my lifetime, but it's not an actual
Right.
fact. It will erode and fall apart eventually.
Yeah, in some sense, the change is the chaos that we live in. Like Heraclitus said, man never steps in the same river twice, or a man never steps in the same river twice. I forget what the actual quote is, but that the river is constantly changing, but we see a river.
Yeah.
We want things to be permanent because we've adapted to these short lifespans, like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So we carve out this space in which we can live. But the universe is indifferent to that. So we have to be, instead of being the thing that carves out this space and lives in it, we have to understand that sometimes the space we carve out isn't good enough because the world keeps moving. So we have to be the thing that can carve out spaces within chaotic nature to live, but also change them into new forms, which we are the thing that does that. Right? Humans are the most adaptable organism on the planet, the human mind, consciousness.
I guess we do that. But more on a that's more on a macro mass level, right? I mean, an individual doesn't so much do that. An individual can, for example, though I think I'm quite adaptive to many things, many circumstances, there's certain things in my lifetime that I've just said, no, thank you, no. And I've seen how that has, like, for example, I'm not that, active on social media. Don't have a Twitter, don't have an Instagram, etc., etc. I don't scorn those who do. I just decided I did not want to do that. But I've seen how that is a way in which that's me sort of rejecting a new means of existing in a world that's moving in a new direction. And so, although, I acknowledge that is part of, I guess, that constantly adapting sort of structure or framework of how we, derive meaning or get something out of life. As an individual, I still reject it.
Right. I think there are a lot of good reasons to do that, though.
Well, me too. That's why I do it.
But the idea that sometimes you have to change the you that you've constructed, that you've built over the years, that's still a thing. Jordan Peterson has this idea, and I know he's a controversial figure to a lot of people.
Controversial is good. Controversial is good.
Yes, it often is. And it may not even be his idea originally. It might be Carl Jung's, but the idea that you should be the thing that transforms who you are, and that the mind, the ego, is a creation of the mind, and the ego is very attached to things and attached to itself. But yourself is not your ego. Your ego is a part of yourself, and you have to be willing to dissolve it to kind of get more in touch with reality. But that entails leaving behind the reality that you live in, and then that's traumatic. It could be
changing the reality of the values that you've created through your ego and whatnot.
Lacan would call that's a traumatic encounter with the real, or something, or maybe it's an acid trip, or other means by which people have sought ego dissolution. Because sometimes one gets to a point in one's life where what they have made of themselves is insufficient to confront the situation. And maybe you might just accept that and be unhappy, or you could reject the idea that you are limited by who you are in some sense, because you have the capacity to be many yous. Like, I can imagine some versions of myself that are definitely worse that I'm glad I haven't actualized. Like you were saying about the idea of being one or two bad decisions away from maybe prison.
Yeah.
Well, it stands to reason there are also better ways of being.
Oh, absolutely.
But
must be.
But you know, that's risk, right? So is it worth the risk? Depends what your current situation is.
Yeah.
But you have the capacity to be the thing that transforms who you are.
To reinvent, yeah. And people, you see that in a very sort of obvious, sort of tangible example of that would be certain enduring pop artists like the David Bowies, the Madonnas, those kind of people, the Princes, that just were able to constantly adapt and be the new thing and set a new trend and become go from avant-garde to being very lowbrow and being about this and being about that and having this kind of I guess, I don't know if they were dissolving their ego so much. Maybe they were just smart public strategists or marketing people, but there's still an idea that like what you are today is kind of just a choice that you've just kind of reinforced in your mind, and you could change it.
Bowie is like, I would say he definitely dissolved his ego more than once.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Bowie music?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite era of his? Because there's several.
I'm I guess most partial to the Ziggy Stardust era.
Yeah.
But also I think like Hunky Dory's probably my favorite album.
Okay.
On the whole. But
I have a weird.
It's hard to choose because he keeps.
It's good. It's basically it's mostly very, very good. Like it's mostly very, very good.
Yeah, I think every Bowie fan goes through phases of like, well, now this is my favorite Bowie, and like, next year, like, no, I'm all about this now. Like,
yeah. I've been for a while now. Maybe it's a signal that it's time for me to change. I've been a big fan of like the new wave Bowie, like the 80s Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, like that kind of era Bowie. Like he's sort of a bit
playful.
He's playful. He's also, there's a bit of cynicism. There's a bit of bitterness to it all. Like maybe not real, but projected. Like this kind of. I think I remember hearing that he. That the idea, there was these new wave kids that are coming out who were imitating Ziggy Stardust and Bowie, and so he started being like, "Well, I'll just imitate their imitation of me and do their imitation of me better than they do it." And
yes,
I love that kind of shit. Rest in peace, Bowie.
Absolutely. Even his last album that came out like right before he died is still amazing.
Oh yeah, is that the Day After? Is that I think it might have been called that. I listened to one. It was definitely one of his more recent ones. It was a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, that's actually it was pretty good. It was real. The back end dropped off a bit, but the first half of the album was really good.
Lazarus.
Well, fuck. Of course.
No.
Of course he
Black
titled
Star.
it. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Bowie's awesome. I also kind of like his coke phase. He was doing I think this was maybe between Ziggy Stardust and the new wave era, like maybe it was like late, like with the what's it called, Station to Station.
Who are some other artists you really like?
A lot, man. I have a, I kind of have a weird variety of tastes, and I fluctuate between them. I went through a big. I kind of grew up. My mum was a big Bowie fan. My mum was a big Talking Heads fan. Lo,
Sick.
lo and behold, I'm a big Bowie and Talking Heads fan.
Nice.
Uh, other influential figures in my life were like Metallica fans, and Marilyn Manson, and this sort of it was sort of like this avant-garde pop on my mum's side, and then like bogan metal on the other side was kind of what I
Oh
grew up
yes.
with. And then I moved into the realms of being really into like rap, like Wu-Tang Clan and shit like that in my, I guess, teens. Through that, kind of moved into like an indie rock phase in the early 2000s, as I think a lot of people
I think
did.
we all went through that phase.
Yeah, we were there. Nowadays,
Modest Mouse and shit.
yeah. That was like even the pop charts was in Australia was like Jet and the Vines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kings of Leon, sort of early Kings of Leon sort of thing. And then in more recent years, I've like hip hop and rap transitioned me into jazz, transitioned me into soul, and those things have sustained. And so, like, I'm a real big fan of like Miles Davis, John Coltrane.
Oh yeah.
Shit like that. Even weird shit like Sun Ra, I'll listen to once in a while.
Sunrise usually a bit much for me, but yes.
Well, some of his early stuff was not so crazy. Like when he started becoming like an intergalactic fucking like conduit of the gods or whatever, he, you can't. It's not easy listening, but
Right.
But
No,
some
but
of his
it's,
early stuff is all right, like something India Blue or something like that. Man, lots of shit. Hey, like lately I've been listening just to a lot of beat tapes and Charles Mingus improvisation shit, like just him on the piano jamming out. There's a couple of tapes of him just doing that. I really like piano improvisations by Charles Mingus.
okay.
Bit of rap. I still listen to like West Side Gun and Freddie Gibbs, some of the new kids that are coming out there, Rock Marciano. I like Americans bragging about how much money they've got. Like I'll never get over that. I'll never be that's like a real that it's aspiration made quantified, and I really like that as kind of as a maybe not a tool, but as just a vessel of feeling a certain way. Anyway, that was a long-winded way of me not really saying any names of artists that I like. How about you?
I like a lot of the same stuff and a lot of different stuff, eclectic stuff. I like a lot of the I like Young Thug's album, or first one anyway, but all those mumble rappers started doing lean, or they were already doing lean.
Yeah. What is lean? Is that like some like codeine thing they're drinking that's like
that's yeah, you take codeine, cough syrup, and you add Sprite and a Jolly Rancher.
Oh, nice.
They drink large amounts of it.
Yeah.
And you get high from the codeine and the other stuff.
They enter a trance like state and write some cool raps.
Yeah. And some of them die and or get addicted and, move on to other stuff. It's have you heard clipping or heard of clipping?
Not in a musical sense, no.
They are they're an experimental rap group that I really can't describe. Their stuff is got a darker sound to it. It's clipping with a period at the end of it.
Okay, yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. And their stuff is sick. And I actually just discovered them. One of the members is the MC is. Have you seen the musical Hamilton? I know that's a big thing for a lot of people, but anyway, he plays Jefferson in Hamilton the musical.
Okay.
And it's pretty good. That's a pretty good musical, by the way. It's
Hamilton.
kind of cheesy, but yeah.
They all are. They all are. That's you're allowed to be. You're expected to be cheesy if you're a musical. Like, do you consume much outside of Twitch these days?
I used to. I watch a bunch of YouTubers. Like, especially like my guilty pleasure is like long form video essays on YouTube. Uh,
That's dope. That's
uh,
cool.
so like people actually have, something interesting to say that they've really thought through. But instead of writing a book and publishing it, like, it's way easier to put your ideas out through YouTube.
And more people are going to consume it. Guaranteed. Yes. No, there's no that. I don't care. Absolutely. I haven't researched that. Is it some things in life are a guarantee? That's a guarantee.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, humans have been listening to each other talk for a lot longer evolutionarily than we've been reading books. Although reading books is important and good, but YouTube and Twitch and things like that and podcasts are, I think, an often overlooked aspect of the way that the internet revolution is like a Gutenbergian revolution in communication.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I think it's almost bigger in a way. I don't know. Like, I wasn't there for the press, but like, like it feels gigantic. Like the avenues, like you've got podcasts, you've got gaming, you've got Twitch, you've got weird shit like 10-second, 5-second TikTok shit that I don't even understand. You've got Twitter. There's all these vessels that you can become so absorbed in. Like there's Instagram, I know people who spend 90% of their lives, 90% of their internet lives on Instagram, just scrolling. And then there's a whole reward kind of dopamine thing attached with that I never got invested in. Like I don't know. It's odd, man. It's odd. It's a crazy time.
Oh, yeah. It is a crazy time. But it doesn't feel like the real social and economic transformation from that hasn't really happened yet. In some sense. It's like we're still living in not the shadow maybe, but like in the shoes or in the imprint of the old model, the old way of doing things, like as though history is kind of stuck in a holding pattern, and it has been since the end of the Second World War almost.
I think COVID is the straw though. I think COVID might be this. Don't you think though? Like it's broken that I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like you're right. We have still got those old models in place and everything that surrounds that, but everything just got broken this year.
Well, not everything. Many things.
I would argue. Well, I don't know if I would argue. I would instinctively, my gut says it's a critical mass of things, though.
I suppose we'll see. I guess this is me being afraid to make a prediction again.
Yes, the futurist over here.
Right. In 5 months, how bad? It's tough to even know how to phrase the question, because in some sense, talking about wanting to go back to normal implies that there was something normal about the situation before. But what makes one situation more normal than another? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. Do you believe that humans? Sorry for butting in. I'll let you finish your point.
No.
Okay. Do you think that humans? Are there some fundamental things about humans that are normal? For example, the idea of face-to-face communication and going to it, socializing in a pub. Are there some things that are fundamentally, innately normal?
Yes, but also no, because, like, yes, and like obviously we can understand how we're more adapted to evolutionarily to understand social cues that happen in a face-to-face interaction, or even when we can see each other's faces. That's different from being in the same room with each other.
Yeah, yeah.
The energy is very different, right? Because we would have to be in a neutral space for one thing, because right now you're in your space and I'm in my space, and that's totally different from if you were in my house, for you, for sure, but also for me.
That's true. We're
But
not in
like,
a space, in fact. We don't exist in a
right,
space.
right, exactly.
Mm.
Or we're carving out new spaces.
Mm.
And in fact, there's actually a lot of people who do argue that the way that human beings conceptualize and map out the social world they live in uses the same brain architecture that, like, like rats use to carve out their understanding of a maze.
Mm.
Geographic space. Uh, we evolved to understand social space using the same parts of our brain that were designed to understand physical geographic space.
Mm.
So maybe we're wired to just think of things in terms of
That's
spaces.
that kind of resonates with me because like the in this experience of the right now, what we're doing, I'm so looking at you in your room, and
Green
it's
screen.
kind of as if I feel like I'm more conversing with you in your room than I am conversing with you in my room because I'm looking at you. So like
Right. Yes.
my mind has decided that that's the space,
Right.
which is
Yes.
kind of weirdly disconnected from reality. Like that's a weird like schism or whatever.
Well, yeah, but the fact that we're able to do it and it seems to be working
It's awesome.
suggests that it's a thing humans can do.
Yep. Yep.
We have no idea what the limits of human potential and
Mm,
adaptability are.
mm,
Uh, and at the same time, it's really difficult for us to get a handle on what human nature is when using the tool of language, which is culturally derived,
yeah.
right, and has limitations. Kind of any linguistically mediated way of understanding things is always going to be. Uh, it's not the real thing. It's like a model that tries to map onto the real thing, but it's
Yeah.
like more simplified
Yeah.
and.
It's they're signs that point to meaning that are commonly understood, but it can never get to the thing.
Yes,
Yeah, I know what you're
yes,
saying. I know what you're
exactly.
saying.
Yeah, and so it's tough to, any articulation of our conceptualization of human nature is always going to be uh, fundamentally rooted in the fact that it was explained by a human being with a mind that learned to speak a particular language.
Yeah.
And maybe we get, it's like like an asymptote, right? Like the line that gets closer and closer to the line, but it can never actually touch it or something. I kind of think human knowledge is like that. And what,
Mm,
like, science has been very effective in accelerating our ability to understand reality. But our understandings of reality are never the same as reality we're trying to understand, right? The quantum physicists, the physicists all say this, right? Like that actual reality is way too weird for us to actually wrap our brains around what's going on at the quantum level. Uh, so,
no doubt. No
like,
doubt.
science and theories and all of our ideas aren't really so much uh, like the map is not the territory, right?
So is
But
is that then an argument in favor of us being able to thrive in these digital spaces, being that if they're not real, then what does real mean anyway?
well, that might be because we don't know what real is, and
Yeah.
the only way to find out is to find out, right? Is to actually do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's yeah, like it does seem like something would be missing, but then human beings have changed a lot. We've become alienated from a lot, and this does come with increasing costs,
Yeah.
right? Even 100 years ago, most people uh, had a far more knowledge of where the food they ate came from than we do now, right? So we're increasingly tied to the society,
It's very,
the
very true.
economy.
Very true. And it probably only ever seems weird for people who were there during change. You know, like,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
when you are, so like when I was a kid, the idea of me, like, I was a kid, so I definitely wanted to play outside, like, and I did play outside a bunch, and I was lucky enough to be in a world that wasn't like afraid of that happening. So like I could do that, and that's something I feel really lucky to have had in my life. But
Right.
also, Super Nintendo existed, and so, like dial-up internet existed, and so it would be something that I would also want to do. People, of course, right? Like that's a fun, like, let me play some fucking Final Fantasy 7 or something. Let me play a game, and not that that's on Super Nintendo, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
But people of another generation, of the older generation, there was always this thing, I wonder if you might have experienced that as well, where they're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why the fuck would you want to do that with your fucking time? The fuck, you're wasting your fucking life, Like I've heard that so many times. The kids like, what do you mean? This is great. What did you like? Can't you see? And because they were there before it, they were there when that wasn't, that was not associated with their development of meaning and things of importance in life. And
you kids these days with your memes.
And I'm going through that now where I'm like, shit, what things do I choose to be like, what the fuck is that? And then what things do I adapt to,
Yeah.
But I don't know if kids like, like a kid who's 14 now, I don't know if anything is weird. Is this weird?
I'm sure this is weird. Like if you're 14, you probably...
you got to get out there and try and like make out with someone or something.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine that?
Well,
their hormones must be, oh man, I feel so sorry for them.
Man. Feel sorry for me. I'm single.
Me and you both, dude. Me and you both.
One thing, well, you mentioned like, say older people looking at kids playing video games and thinking, oh my God, you're just staring at the boob tube. Your eyes are glued to the screen. How can this be fun? But go back in time 40 years and people were starting to watch television a lot and news and whatnot. And the older generation could have made a similar remark.
My mum tells me that, actually. She tells me that she loved television as like a 16-year-old when they first got a black and white TV. She would sit there and watch some bullshit ass show or whatever, and people like, she's weird. Watches TV, and now, and everyone watched it.
Right. And increasingly no one does anymore.
Well, is that then an argument? Does that mean that we are the people? Is Twitch going to be? Here I am trying to get futurist questions out of you.
No problem.
But let me be the futurist. Then that might lend itself to the possibility of something like Twitch in 5 years' time being fucking gigantic. Maybe not gaming, but maybe for live music, or maybe for IRL shit, or maybe for this, or maybe for that. And I'm so curious to find out.
It's interesting.
If it has legs, basically.
Yes. I think there's definitely potential in those areas that you talked about.
So this is one we can maybe touch on. That I've definitely brought up in chats with Cranberry, your bro, is the idea of like streaming and authenticity. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that I still personally struggle with a little bit, if I'm honest. And I guess that's why I keep enjoy the conversation whenever it's brought up or whenever I bring it up. Obviously, people want something. Well, I imagine people want something real. You know, when you spend 6 hours of a day with somebody, like the idea is that that person is to some extent a real human being, because I think, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like Twitch is sort of a substitute for human relationships. Do you agree with this, or am I like, what do you feel about this?
Is it a substitute for human relationships or a new kind of human relationships?
Yeah.
That's one of those questions I think that can only really be, we'll develop new understandings of these things over time, but I don't know if there's one right answer. Reality is difficult to pin down. In some sense, it's what we make of it.
Yeah.
And different people are able to make different things of it. I would give you like top marks among like streamers that I watch in terms of just being chill and genuine and authentic.
Oh, thank you.
And like you've got this pristine environment behind you that's very relaxing.
Ah, good. I hope that's what I go for. If only you saw what was. If only if you saw what was to the right of screen. There's a pile of corpses and my own feces.
Oh man! Well, you can probably see some of the chaos in this room. Behind here is like there's a television.
Oh damn! Look at that.
There's clothes behind there.
But you've got the green screen up, and you've. I don't think you were always using that, but you've started using that recently, right?
Yeah, I use it sometimes. I use it a lot, lately, especially because I got tired of moving my webcam around on the screen so as not to hide any of the UI or whatever. Because
right.
I notice this a lot on some people's streams. I'm not going to name any names, but I get thinking like, oh, I can't tell.
Cranberry pudding. I don't know that. I don't know. I just felt like running his.
I don't know what your HP levels are right now, man. Are you?
Come on, oh man, but
are you winning?
Are you winning, son? Coming back to it though, like, I'm glad. I'm really glad to hear you say that. And honestly, I feel the same way about you. Like, I think my impressions of your stream would be that Bizud is not known for giving too much of a fuck. Like, I say that as a compliment. I don't mean that as like, you know, it's a compliment. But
I appreciate it.
And that to me is a form of authenticity as well. Like that I can tell that is you being you on the platform. Like you, like, not sort of trying to doctor that, or if you are, you're doing a good job of hiding it.
Just me with a camera in my room.
yeah, exactly. But you know, I've had this discussion with people though, dude. Like, and I've heard justifications for being a little less authentic. I've heard reasonable arguments for it. And sometimes I analyze myself, like if I've been in some moods in the last week or so due to some things that have nothing to do with Twitch, that I've had to go and check myself. When I read stuff, sometimes I'll read something and I'll just go, man, I don't give a fuck. Like that's like sometimes I'll think that, and that's how I really feel, and it's ugly, and I don't want to show it, so I don't. And that to me is a form of inauthenticity. But it's also, what am I if I don't, then I'm just an asshole. So there's the dilemma I have.
But it seems, yes, I agree. But this is something we deal with in other aspects of life as well.
Yeah.
To a greater or lesser degree, it's like, you know, is it worth being about this today at work?
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes even just like there is some merit to fake it till you make it, in the sense of like, you know, going about your day and stuff will put you along the road to moving on from something. Like if you have nothing to do, it's easier to dwell on shit. For example, I try to be as honest and open as possible.
Yep.
Because I want to be integrated, let's say, right? As opposed to, having to compartmentalize too much.
Mm-hmm.
And you're disintegrated from yourself.
Yeah.
And
if you're spending a long period of time doing this, like that, I think that's the thing, right? Like if I go to the supermarket, for example, and someone says, "How are you?" I can go, "I'm good, thanks." Even though maybe someone just fucking stole my watch that day or something like that, and I might be feeling terrible, because that's that is an interaction, and for the convenience and pleasantness of that transaction, you may as well treat somebody in just an inauthentic way, because there's no reason to otherwise. But the streaming thing, you're going for 6 hours, you're going for 7 hours, you're going for 8 hours, you might go for 40 in a week. Sometimes people do that shit. So it's like, well, how much of that becomes you.
I think my record was 2 15-hour streams.
Oh,
like in a weekend, like 15 hours, sleep for 8, 15 hours.
I don't think I'll ever be
playing
doing that.
Final Fantasy VI. And
well, a good game to be playing. You probably could have gotten through 2/3 of it in that time period as well.
I got through the whole thing in that time period, and that's why it took me that long. But I kind of foolishly thought that I could maybe do the whole thing in one 12 to 15-hour stream.
Madness.
Because I've seen what some speedrunners do in it and stuff. And anyway, because I haven't done that before, I wasn't able to pull it off. So,
oh, man.
But yeah, it's a long time to be on.
Yeah,
I guess I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't feeling like doing it at that point. But like I said, I don't even have a schedule set up right now, really. And I have tried to in the past, and at some point, real life always starts kicking me in the shins when I tried to stick to it too rigorously. So that's definitely an area that I need to improve for my own stream, because it's, in a way, it should be about trying to integrate in the stream into other aspects of life in a way that is realistic and, honest, and doesn't require either self-deception or deception of others. There's no point going all in on something if at a rate that isn't sustainable.
Yeah. Right.
So finding the balance. Yes.
I think balance is really important, a balance for your own sanity, because you can pretend. It doesn't take that much self-awareness to be able to, and social intelligence to be able to realize what things people want. Like, maybe not on the level of like what exact games do they want, what exact format, but just in terms of like what kind of person do they want. All you have to do is look at the successful people and be like, okay, what do they have? They have a certain pleasantness, they have a certain spontaneity, they have a certain charisma, etc., etc. But then, like,
mostly,
well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just have a certain look or a certain pre-existing notoriety or something like that, or
right, something that does it for whatever their peculiar fan base is,
whatever their thing is, right? But I feel like it's not that hard to figure out what a mass of people want. But then there's that thing, well, how do I reconcile that with how I can, what makes me comfortable in when I have to look at myself in the mirror, like in who I am? How can I navigate those two things? And that was a big problem for me towards the end of my career in teaching in universities or teaching in colleges. Like, there was this idea that I became, in the office, I was very muted, and I wasn't shy. I'm not a shy person by any means, but it just that I sort of read my room. I was like, this room's not gonna, like, they're not, they're not picking up what I could be putting down. So I'll just put down what I know they want,
Right.
and that was fine though, because I could be a teacher I was a teacher for the most time, and those oddly enough, I could be more myself in those circumstances, because they didn't believe in the system either, and I kind of didn't believe in the system, and so like I could show that within that framework, and we could all just get through it together
On the same page.
On the same
page. More
page.
like it.
And so I was able to survive the brief periods of relative inauthenticity, knowing that I would have periods where I could be authentic. And so that's the thing that I wonder, like, yes, you can succeed more, I believe, if you pander a little bit to things that other people might want, but at what cost?
Yep. At what cost?
What cost?
It's like Carl Rogers, the psychotherapist, had the idea of the real self and the ideal self, and that neurosis develops from like distance between these two things. And he's thought, anyway, I like the idea, because it does seem like too much of a disconnect will wear on you, and you won't be able to tolerate it forever. Right? If the list of things you can't say, can't talk about, becomes bigger and more important to you. But on the other hand, you can easily tolerate it if you've got much more important things to do while you're there. So it's all about what's important to you. And is that lining up with what you're having to do to the point that it feels meaningful? That's life. That's the great, well, that's the challenge of leading an integrated, authentic life.
Yeah. And I guess that this is not a new phenomenon. It's just new variables.
Exactly.
We've been asking these questions for probably since the dawn of time.
It's the human condition, for sure. Yeah.
What is, you alluded to earlier, or you said earlier that Twitch has been really good for you in this period. What is it that you most value in Twitch as a platform?
I appreciate it's hard to put my finger on one thing. Like, I've met people through Twitch who I talk to very regularly now, that I would consider friends. And well, for one thing, like you talked about it as a substitute for human interaction, and it's definitely helped me get through the severe curtailing of the number of people that I interact with every day.
You were saying that what I took from what you were saying anyway was that you sort of depend on these interactions with all these people as a sort of maybe a confirmation or maybe a condition of being sane, or being like doing fine, or maybe some might say fitting in, or having a place,
or on the right track,
yeah. And I think it's so, when you're in an environment where you're interacting with hundreds of people a day, those little, dare I say, microtransactions, those little social microtransactions, though we might not register them, surely that has an impact on our sense of place within a society, right? And I think it's a lot of the little things that have sort of disappeared, and that's, I mean, for me, being able to have some semblance of that via Twitch is very valuable. I agree.
When I went back to university as a mature student, one of the ways in which I kind of helped spur myself on to do as well as I possibly could was to kind of surround myself with other very driven, motivated, high energy, uh, individuals. And it's nice when you see people on Twitch who are doing things that they're passionate about, right? Because obviously passion is infectious, and that's we like to see it in other people. We like to feel it in ourselves. That's like, because that's kind of passion is like a sense of intuited meaning, right? So
yeah, no, it is, right. And passion is it's an excitement about life, and like sometimes just seeing that someone can get excited about something, like be it a game, be it something, just any type of art they're into, be it something they want to do themselves, an idea, that gets me excited about it too. I totally agree with that. And I mean, that's fucking essential. That's fucking essential, man, for someone like me, especially.
Yes. And I'm trying to think what else to say.
Well, I guess we're talking about. Well, I'll speak for myself. What I like about Twitch is, the interconnectedness I really like. But I do like the idea of it as a neo business. I like the idea of it as a self-determining. It's not an escape from the man. There's always going to be somebody who makes money off you. That's just the world we live in, and I'm okay with that. What are you going to do? But
it's making Bezos a lot of money.
Sure. But I mean, in me working for the hospital, I'm going to be buying all my stuff off him anyway. So he's got it like you know what I mean? Like, he's already won. He's already won. So that's fine. What can I do for myself though? And I like it both as a social outlet, but also as a financial outlet, as an expressive outlet. But for me, and I could see myself doing this for a long time. I really could. Otherwise, I wouldn't be fucking investing everything I am into it now. I can, but I've come to a thing lately where there's something else. There is still a tangible thing that is just missing. It cannot become my entire life. It could be 50% of my life. It could be 60% of my life. Maybe 70, but it could never be 100% of my life. You know what I mean?
You need the cameras in more rooms in your house.
Yes, exactly. And now for my taking a shit stream, everybody. Jesus, I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about, especially with the possibilities of technological development that carve out spaces like for things like Twitch, because Twitch won't be the last thing of its kind.
No, that's the thing as well, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And things happen so quickly on the internet, especially that, and established companies and governments kind of try to get a handle on it, but they become the new dinosaurs, right? Facebook.
Facebook doesn't feel relevant anymore.
It doesn't really feel relevant anymore. I only use it for Messenger, but I do know.
I use Messenger. That's true.
Right. There you go. And it reminds you of birthdays because we used to have memories, or we used to write stuff down.
Not me. It doesn't for me because I don't go on to, I only have Messenger Lite on my phone. I have a Facebook account, but I never get any notifications. So I miss everyone's birthday.
Okay.
So
Right.
I am now a pariah in my former social circles because I don't give a fuck about anyone because I don't get the memos that it's their birthday, So
Right. Everyone. Yeah. Uh, I. Hmm. There are some people who are still on Facebook, but it's increasingly like when I look at the kind of stuff that people post, uh, it's increasingly divorced from the conversations that are happening elsewhere.
right.
Uh, so, a lot like whether it's outright conspiratorial stuff or I don't know what. Well, people post stuff. I have very good friends who post some of the craziest things on Facebook about the military is going to take over.
Okay.
Justin Trudeau was supposed to make a national announcement that the military is taking over and we're going to have a 6-month quarantine and no one's going to be able to leave their house. This was going around Facebook, and I'm like, you people are idiots. Like QAnon stuff as well. Have you heard about that?
I've heard of it. I haven't delved into it simply because I've been so invested in this Twitch thing that I've sort of stayed away from other internet movements.
Very good choice, maybe.
Yeah. My mum told me a little bit about it though. She's a bit more into it than I am. Well, not that she's like a big fan or anything.
It's like basically originated on 4chan, and there's a person who posts there who claims to be inside the Trump administration talking about how Trump is actually, working to free us all from the grip of
like
globalist
the
elites
new
and
world
pedophiles
order sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, this is crazy on 2 levels. Well, because, conspiracy theory on the one hand, but also Trump is going to save us all from the conspiracy. Like that's too much. I don't even know how you can fathom that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy, man. That's insane. Yeah, I met somebody, and dude, I realized I'm gonna have to we gotta wrap this up soon. And I'm also getting a little. I'm derailing. I'm getting a little tipsy. But
no worries.
I met somebody when I was in Bali. I met this guy. I was at a bar. I think I was out probably. Let's be real. I was probably out chasing skirt, and naturally, it winds up me just chatting with some dude at a bar. But there's some of the best nights, and he was this older gentleman he used to apparently, he could have been full of shit. I didn't check his credentials. He used to apparently run a skate magazine in England or something like that, and he was sort of involved in the record beers, and he's done all these things. But he was the first. He started telling me about he had a bit of a conspiratorial kind of edge to him, and he was the first person that started telling me stuff about these crazy pedophilia rings and shit like that. And it was one of those things where I'm like, well, I'll never know. Right. I'll never know. You could be I don't know, maybe maybe it's all true, or maybe you're a lunatic, or maybe it's 50-50. Maybe it's half true and half you're a lunatic. And but it's crazy because that was just a person I met who, I don't think he was an internet poster or anything like that, or a big internet user. He was just an old dude who apparently knew people. I don't know.
The old dudes, yeah. I've bought some weed from some dudes like that in my time, and they've got great stories. They're hilarious, generally speaking.
Yeah, maybe they're all just deranged. Maybe they've smoked themselves fucking stupid.
Well, I think is there some truth to wow, super rich and powerful people can get away with doing heinous shit, and some of them do.
Yeah.
That's not really surprising, or I don't have a problem believing that some of the specific things that people might say, but when it's as usual, there's entire full theories elaborated around these ideas. And it's if you applied even half of the skepticism that you apply to anything that everybody else believes
to your theories,
theory,
they'd fall like a house of cards.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a a ring of pedophiles controls Washington, and by the way, they're all Democrats. Like, come on.
Yeah, they just all happen to be Democrat.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
sure.
how convenient. How convenient.
Exactly. I think in spite of how difficult it can be, though, it's important to keep the lines of communication open with people.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when people, especially now with the internet, people branch off into their own epistemic bubbles. And so much of what we believe is really comes from trust and who we trust and who we don't trust. And if people don't trust anything and they sequester themselves in this epistemic bubble, well, it becomes harder and harder for us to talk to each other. And it used to be that, like, well, maybe crazy guy has 9 coworkers and he's one among 10.
Yeah.
But then he goes home to the internet and he can find 10,000 other people who believe the same thing he does.
The same, yeah.
And tell him, yeah, man, those 9 people, your coworkers are all sheeple, dude. They're believing the man.
Well, that's why I really
Again,
think...
no offense, anybody.
No, I mean, well, that actually ties in nicely with what I was going to say, because like something that I've found to be really kind of liberating, maybe liberating is the wrong word, that gives me hope, I guess, about the sort of Twitch thing, the people I've met throughout Twitch, is that I don't think it is one of those bubbles. Like, if you were to sit 100 of the people that I most frequently see, interact with, say hello to, down, and we were to take some like political, ethical, scientific values, beliefs, all these kind of things, if we were to take some like exam on where we fit and what our beliefs are and what we take to be true in the news and what's really going on and all that kind of stuff, I think there'd be some vast difference.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. Like, that's okay, you know? Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, the things that are going on matter, of course, but it doesn't mean that you can't respect another person's humanity and you can't fucking get along with another human being over something that's unrelated.
Right.
And that's something that I really do find valuable about Twitch. And I was a little worried at first. I didn't think that would happen, but I think some of the personalities that I've come into contact with, you and a bunch of the other people I've spoken with that stream and the people who come in chat, have enabled this, for lack of a better term, safe space.
I try to have that.
Yeah.
That's it, because that term has taken on a connotation.
I know.
Right?
That's why I said for lack of a better term.
but that's exactly the right way you're describing it, is in fact exactly the right way to think about it.
Yeah.
It ought to be, a space in which people feel free to articulate the truth as they see it. Yeah. Because how else are we supposed to make sense of the world? Yeah. And I want to hear ideas that contradict my perspective, or we get the best criticism of our ideas from people who don't share our base assumptions, right? Because they question things that we take for granted. And even if we don't end up changing our mind, well, then we've at least thought our positions and our ideas out more thoroughly. Yeah. So like, it's just incredibly important. Like, that's why Socrates, when you have 2 people debate, he'd have each of them start off by stating the other person's position as they best understood. Oh,
like steelmanning the argument, as they say.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Well, steelmanning, you're trying to even make it the best possible version of itself. Yeah. Which is also a useful exercise, because again, if just like when, like in sports or in video games competitively, it's difficult to get much better than your best competition, right? Yes. You need to engage with, or it's like weight training, right? You need to encounter resistance to get stronger.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And to keep you certain, or not certain, to keep you understanding why you believe the things you believe, why you are the person you are. Like, I think that's important, not just because it's the right way, or because it's obvious, because all my friends think it, like it's
right.
It's
Exactly.
it's important
And
to surround
have to
yourself
have
with people like that.
epistemic humility, like I
Yeah,
said, I
yeah.
think earlier, that, you know, I am willing to talk to other people because it'd be stupid for me to pretend that I have all the answers
Mhm,
and
mhm.
that I can learn nothing from somebody just because everything they said in the last 3 minutes sounds insane to me. Um, you know, maybe there's something, if nothing else. Shoot, I was gonna say one other thing, but I have also forgotten.
Well, dude, it's been I tell you what, my biggest challenge with these content episodes is keeping the time down. Which I tell you what, that's what they call a good problem. That's what they call a good problem, because it'd be much worse if it was the other way, where it's like I'm shooting for fucking 2 hours and I get to 45 minutes. And I'm like, how about that local sports team? But
It's a
dude,
good
we're
problem
gonna
to
have
have.
to wrap it up. But man, I feel like we got a bunch more we could talk about. We could shoot the shit forever, I'm sure.
I know we didn't even get to talk about video games, really.
We didn't talk about video games. Okay,
I
so
know.
Jesus.
Are you gonna play Cyberpunk
No,
when it comes out?
no.
No.
Are you?
Okay. Maybe.
I'll tell you why, though. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, please do.
My PC can't fucking handle that shit.
Oh, okay.
It may be on like no, there's no way my PC could handle that shit. But and also because I know 75% of people I know on Twitch will play it and will stream it, and I
Right.
can just experience it vicariously through them. And because no one else is gonna not play it, they're gonna need the viewers. So I'll be one of those viewers.
Yes. Yes.
I experienced that through Demon Souls. I was playing Demon Souls on PS3, and suddenly the PS5 version dropped, and then no one was watching me anymore because there were 3 million streamers of Demon Souls. So just be careful with that. Be careful with that, Cyberpunk people. That's all I'm saying.
Right? People
That's all I'm
are
saying.
so quick to, you know,
That's all I'm saying.
you want to be one of 10,000 people
Yeah.
streaming Cyberpunk.
But I'm hyped. I'm hyped to watch it. Like, I will probably watch a lot of it. Like, I'll watch like my favorite people playing it. I'm pretty psyched.
I usually am pretty good about avoiding getting hyped about any games at all until maybe right before they come out. It's like, because why even think about it? Especially when it keeps getting delayed.
Yeah.
But
isn't it supposed to drop in a couple of days now?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
And that, I feel like there's going to be stuff in it that's going to be super thought provoking, because Cyberpunk is always like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you've engaged much with the classic Cyberpunk literature, like Blade Runner, Neuromancer.
I've been playing the point and click Blade Runner lately, which is sort of derived from the exact same universe as the first film, or as the films of that 2019 Los Angeles. I haven't read it's Philip K. Dick, right?
Yeah.
I haven't read that, but that's something that's come up a lot lately. Is my desire to read more sci-fi. Sci-fi is my experience with sci-fi has mostly been through film and television, like Star Trek, various sci-fi films. I guess Black Mirror is kind of a modern sci-fi.
Oh man. Yeah.
Like films like Ex Machina. Did you see that?
Yes, I liked it.
I really like that film too.
Yeah.
But I should read more. I should read some sci-fi. I'm stuck in lit. I got to get out of my comfort zone over here.
There's lots of there's some really good stuff. Blade Runner is a pretty good place to start.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah, Philip K. Dick in general.
Consciousness.
Very readable.
Consciousness, right? And that's pretty fucking thought provoking right there.
Yeah.
Yes. What is coming up in the future for Bizud? Twitch-wise.
What is coming up?
And life-wise. Twitch-wise and life-wise. Both wise.
Bizud will be streaming again in the next few days, I think.
What will you be streaming?
I've had pretty good engagement playing Divinity Original Sin 2.
Oh, good game.
And I enjoy the heck out of the game.
I've watched a bunch.
Got I'm in the middle of 4 playthroughs with different people and 2 by myself. And every time I stream them, people always show up and they have things to say about the game, and because there's so much in it. And it's I don't have a problem with if people want a backseat game or whatever, and I want to tell them to fuck off, then I just will, or not fuck off, but I'll just be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So pretty much, I always welcome whatever people have to say about the game or about anything. Almost.
Yeah.
So the game is good. It drives engagement, and the other game probably that I've played in the past year that I had the best audience engagement with was Subnautica.
I've seen a bit of your Subnautica actually. Good.
Oh man, it's
Great
so
time.
much fun.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, and the new game Below Zero is still in early access, but it's almost finished, and there's a new update, and I haven't played that yet, and I'm looking forward to playing that.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Exciting stuff.
and maybe even a regular streaming schedule.
Regularity incoming.
Regularity, I know, right?
Fucking love it. Bizud, it's been really great speaking with you, man. It's the first chance I've really, like, we've definitely spoken in real time through various Discord chats and stuff like that with games and whatnot.
Yeah.
But this is the first chance we've really had to, like, sit down and actually
Chat one-on-one.
chat one-on-one. It's been great, man. I've really enjoyed it.
Dingleberry's
Dingleberry, I've
enjoyed
enjoyed
it
you
as
too, Dingleberry. Look at you. Look at that tilted face.
Oh man.
Man, I look forward
Thank
to
you very much for the opportunity.
Man, appreciate
to be
it,
on
dude.
this thing.
Any fucking
Keep doing
time.
what you're doing.
Man, I'm excited to see what comes up for both of us. And let's talk again, man. This was great.
Absolutely. You know how to find me.
Fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah, dude. I couldn't say dude there. I said dirt. Fuck yeah, dirt. Let's get the fuck out of here. Bye-bye.